Chapter 30, 795. He saw a red-clothed woman with a big belly sitting in front of the furnace. He only saw the woman's stunning side profile. With just one glance, his body involuntarily trembled, and he instinctively took a step back. She is. The man who had been vicious and ruthless a moment ago had now turned pale. There was fear in his eyes as he took a step back. The cold sweat on his forehead and his trembling body were telling others that he was extremely terrified at this moment. "Leader? What's wrong?" The man next to him saw this and couldn't help but ask in a low voice. At this time, the leader of the underground black mercenary group didn't seem to hear the words of the mercenary beside him. His eyes were wide open in horror as he looked at the beautiful woman in red who was about 100 meters away. He only felt his heart beating violently, and he was so nervous that he couldn't even speak. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of the news he got from the underground black market a few months ago, as well as the portrait that was destroyed after just one glance. A few months ago, a group of mysterious people killed a peak master of the immortal sect and crippled more than a dozen of their disciples. As a few months passed, it seemed that people had forgotten about them. However, since he saw the portrait and heard those things that time, he couldn't forget them. First, it was because the woman in the portrait was extremely beautiful. Just one glance was unforgettable. Second, it was because of the thunderous means that made people shudder. He couldn't forget such a person even if he wanted to. Feng Jiu waved her hand, indicating for Qin Xin to step back. At the same time, she took a step forward to the cauldron. Her spirit force gushed forth as she added a few drops of snow water into the cauldron. At the next moment, the atmosphere in the surroundings changed. In the pitch-black night, there seemed to be muffled sounds of thunder. This is the pill thunder? The tall and thin man who followed behind and didn't step forward saw the strange phenomenon in the sky and couldn't help but open his eyes wide. Sure enough, just as his voice fell, he heard a crackling sound in the sky. Then, a heavenly thunder rumbled and struck the furnace. Boom! A powerful aura surged, and the loud sound shook the ground slightly, not to mention the pressure and movement spreading in the dark night. Feng Jiu didn't have the time to pay attention to those underground mercenaries. At this time, she was standing in front of the pill furnace, and her hands were quickly forming a seal, and a pure aura flowed into the pill furnace. In other parts of the forest, some people were surprised when they saw this strange phenomenon in the night sky. They were all resting in the forest when they suddenly noticed that something was wrong with the aura surging in the night sky. Is this the evolution of a dire beast? How is that possible? Even if ferocious beasts evolve, there might not necessarily be heavenly lightning. What could it be? Look at the strange phenomenon in the night sky. That kind of strange phenomenon should be the birth of a rare and precious medicinal pill, someone said excitedly, pointing at the strange phenomenon in the night sky. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a deep breath and headed in that direction, intending to see what was going on. Go! Who knows, they might be able to do something big. Ha 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 ha! The birth of a top-grade medicinal pill would definitely cause a lot of people to fight for it. In this forest, in addition to some people who were training, there were also some people who had various reasons to come in. Therefore, when they saw the strange phenomenon, they all had an idea and headed in that direction one by one. Chapter 3796. A loud rumble reverberated through almost half of the forest. The ground shook because of the rumble, and all the beasts in the forest looked up at the sky, smelling the medicinal fragrance that permeated the forest. Some of the beasts sniffed with all their might as they headed in that direction. Just by smelling the aroma of the spiritual medicine, they could feel the blood in their bodies pulsing. It was a feeling of extreme excitement, a kind of impulsive desire. In the darkness of the night, some people in the forest rushed towards the place where the lightning struck. However, some of them were too far away. Even if they rushed over, they probably wouldn't be able to reach it in a short period of time. At the place where Feng Jiu was refining pills, 100 meters away, the mercenary group leader's expression changed greatly as he quickly retreated. His heart sank as he looked at the smiling man holding a fan standing not far in front of him, as well as the outstanding men and women around him. I really didn't mean to offend you. We'll leave immediately. Leave immediately. The mercenary group leader said with a pale face as he stared vigilantly at Du Fan and the others, afraid that they would suddenly attack him. At this moment, he finally knew why the people he sent out to find out didn't return. It turned out that they had met a group of people like them. Looking at the shocked expression of the mercenary group leader, the smile on Du Fan's face deepened. He fanned himself with the fan in his hand and asked, "Do you know who we are?" It was a light sentence. Although he had a smile on his face and looked amiable, the mercenary group leader's forehead was covered in cold sweat. I don't know." The mercenary group leader wiped his sweat and said with a trembling voice, "Have you seen my master?" Du Fan asked again with a smile. He released his aura and enveloped the mercenary group leader's body. The powerful aura that fell on him was like a mountain pressing down on him, making it hard for him to breathe and unable to straighten his back. He knew that if Xianwen didn't know, she would probably attack him. Therefore, he said with a trembling voice, I saw the portrait on the wanted poster in the underground black market. At that time, I saw the portrait of your noble master. I only saw it once, really, that's all." Hearing this, Du Fan nodded. "I see." Seeing that he didn't say anything and just stared at him, he didn't know what he was thinking. That mercenary leader didn't dare to move an inch. He braced himself and stood there, allowing Lin Li to size him up. He didn't dare to open his mouth. After a long while, he couldn't stand the oppressive atmosphere anymore. Then he mustered up his courage and asked, "Sir, can we leave now?" If he had known that these people were the ones on the wanted posters, he wouldn't have come even if they offered him a large sum of money. These people's ferocious reputation had long been secretly spread. After the people from the mortal sect, they had consecutively exterminated several clans that had sent their portraits to the bounty posters. Until now, whenever this matter was mentioned, the underground forces would tremble in fear. Du Fan glanced at him, then looked at Lung Hua and asked, "What do you think?" Lung Hua glanced at them and said, "Master's medicinal pills are about to come out of the cauldron." The commotion caused by the heavenly thunder is not small. The cultivators in the surrounding area have probably heard the commotion and rushed over. Let them stand guard in the surroundings. Chapter 3797. No problem, no problem. Leave this to us. We'll definitely guard the surroundings and not let anyone come near. He hurriedly promised, only hoping that these people wouldn't attack them. Although he was an extremely vicious person and wasn't weak, he knew that he was far from being a match for these people. If he insisted on going against them, it would be like hitting a rock with an egg. He would be seeking his own death. Now that they finally had such an opportunity, they naturally had to grasp it well and strive to survive. "Go!" Du Fan gestured and stood there watching. "Yes." The mercenary group leader hurriedly responded and hurriedly led his mercenaries to the surroundings, spreading out to guard. This scene made the 20 mercenaries behind him dumbfounded. What was going on? Why was even the extremely vicious underground mercenaries afraid of them? Who exactly were they? Jin Yifeng's heart trembled slightly. Although they had seen too many shocking and even inconceivable things along the way, seeing the fearless underground mercenaries actually begging for mercy and even guarding the surroundings still made him feel incredulous. Boom! The third bolt of lightning struck, shaking his mind and clearing his mind. He instinctively looked towards the pill furnace and saw Madame Xuanyuan's palms flipping rapidly. The spiritual aura in the furnace seemed to be rushing towards the core of the furnace at this moment. It was also at this moment that the sound of fighting seemed to be faintly heard from 100 meters away. He immediately tensed up and shouted in a low voice, "Be alert!" The 20 mercenaries didn't dare to be careless. They guarded the surroundings tightly and listened to the battle in the pitch-black night. It seemed to be the battle between the ferocious beasts and the underground mercenaries. There were also some clanging sounds of the blades of other cultivators clashing. The people from the Ouyang family who had been hurrying towards this direction heard the 3 bolts of lightning in the sky and looked in that direction. The old man's eyes flashed, and he shouted, "Quick! Speed up and advance!" The group of people moved swiftly in the night and rushed towards that direction. At the same time, Fengjiu was completing the final step in the pill furnace. After the pill was condensed and formed, she clapped her palms, and a pill emitting a pure white light flew out of the pill furnace. When the pill came out of the furnace, a rich medicinal fragrance assailed their nostrils. She looked at the pill that was as white as moonlight, and her heart was filled with excitement. She had never been so excited, even when she had refined a ninth-grade medicinal pill in the past. At this moment, as she watched this medicinal pill take shape, the rims of her eyes involuntarily turned slightly hot. She had finally succeeded. With this pill, Mose would definitely wake up. With a wave of his hand, he opened a pill bottle and placed the moonlight pill into it. Then, he closed the lid and put it into the space. After storing the pills into her space, her heart finally settled down. She slowly exhaled a breath of relief. "Congratulations, Master!" Qin Exin, who was beside her, smiled happily. She was also very happy. Fengjiu's lips curled up into a smile. Her eyes twinkled as she said, "This cauldron of pills took me an entire day to refine. There were 3 pills, but in the end, only one was successful. The other 2 were useless. However, one is already enough." Creek. Chapter 3798. There were no pills in the furnace. For fear that the flesh-eating crow's flapping wings would hurt her, she quickly retreated and covered her belly with one hand. Qin Xin also protected Fengjiu behind her at the first time. She did not attack, but just protected Fengjiu and retreated, so as not to hurt the child. Lung Shuang and others also stepped forward at the first time. Ying Yi's sword was extremely fast. No one knew where it came from, but in an instant, it chopped at the flesh-eating crow that was trying to get into the furnace to grab the pills. The flesh-eating crow flopped. At the moment when it dodged Ying Yi's attack, its whole body directly got into the furnace. As soon as it got in, its wings fluttered inside, making a flopping sound, as well as a cry as if it was scalded. Fengjiu looked at the scene with some astonishment. He saw that the flesh-eating crow actually got into the furnace and was still fluttering its wings inside. Perhaps affected by the heat of the furnace, the flesh-eating crow's feathers fell a lot in its fluttering. Because the pills refined in the furnace had to be taken orally, and the flesh-eating crow was a beast that ate carrion, Fengjiu frowned and walked out from behind Qin Xin. He turned his palm, and a stream of air shot out. The flesh-eating crow that was fluttering in the furnace was knocked out by a force from the furnace. Squeak! Woo! A scream sounded, followed by a slightly hoarse cry. A mass of black flew out, and the next moment, it was chopped in midair by the sword Qi. Whoosh! The sharp sword Qi cut through, and blood splashed on the grass. The flesh-eating crow's body was cut in 2 and fell into the weeds. Fengjiu glanced at the flesh-eating crow and looked around. She saw that there were flying beasts on the trees, not far away, and pairs of eyes were staring at her. Seeing this, she frowned slightly. Walking forward, she came to the side of the pill furnace. She saw that the 2 dark black pills in the pill furnace had been flapped by the carnivorous crows and had rolled to the edge of the pill furnace. There were also a few carnivorous crow feathers in the furnace. Thus, with a move of her palm, a ball of flame flew out from her hand and once again ignited the furnace. In a short while, the few feathers inside were burned clean. She put away the 2 black pills and thought to herself, "Although these 2 pills are useless, I wonder what kind of problems will occur if I consume them." She put away the pills, and with a flick of her sleeve, the furnace was also put into her space. The roars of ferocious beasts and the clanging of swords and sabers made her frown in displeasure. Cloud swallowing. A light flashed, and the cloud-swallowing beast came out of the space and stood in front of her. "Master, you've been in there for a long time. Go take a walk around," Fengjiu said, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Her eyes twinkled with an indescribable smile. Hearing this, Cloud Swallowing understood her meaning. It immediately responded and took a step forward. It raised its head and roared. Roar! Following that roar, a powerful sacred beast aura spread out. The airflow that could be seen with the naked eye was like ripples in water. It shocked the beasts on the trees and the fierce beasts in the forest, and they all turned around and ran for their lives. Bang, 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 bang. Chapter 3799. Some of the cultivators who had rushed over from the forest saw the beasts running around in a frenzy. They were so shocked that they quickly hid their cultivation aura to prevent themselves from being targeted and attacked by these crazy beasts. The surrounding beasts were all running around. Chaotic howls and the sound of trees being knocked down could be heard from time to time. This caused the dark night to become restless and made people feel uneasy, especially when Tunyon leaped and circled around the area. The beasts ran even faster. Some of the beasts even lowered their bodies and crawled away in order to quickly leave the place that made them feel fearful and uneasy. Compared to the chaos and fear of the surrounding beasts, Fengjiu was much calmer. Especially after the surrounding beasts had all run away, not a single sound was made. "Master, are you tired? Do you want to rest for a while?" Qin Xian asked. Seeing that she had been busy refining the pill without resting and had only eaten a spiritual fruit to replenish her strength, she was really worried that her body wouldn't be able to take it. Because she had successfully refined the pill, Fengjiu was more happy than tired. However, she couldn't wait to give the pill to Mose and see his body's reaction after taking the pill. Thus, she said, "Guard the surroundings. I'll rest for a while and leave tomorrow." As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her sleeves, and a flying ship appeared in the empty space in front of her. The flying ship gradually grew in size and occupied the entire empty space. After instructing them, Fengjiu led Lung Shuang and Qin Xian onto the flying ship. Once they were on the flying ship, she directly went to the cabin where she could rest. She closed the door and flashed into the space. "Say, I've refined the pill." Fengjiu couldn't hide her joy as she quickly walked to the ice bed. When she came to the side and saw Xianyuan Mose lying on the ice bed, she couldn't help but hold his hand and pull it close to her lips to kiss it. "Say, I've refined the pill," she said again. This time, her voice was gentle and steady, filled with joy and excitement. She didn't immediately take out the pill for him to take. Instead, she held his hand and checked his body's condition. Then, she used silver needles to move several major acupuncture points on his body. When she felt the flow of energy in his body, she took out the pill and stuffed it into his mouth. She gently lifted his chin and let the pill slide down his throat. Then, she took out a bottle of spiritual liquid and poured it into his mouth. She let the spiritual liquid slide down his throat and helped him swallow the pill smoothly. She pressed her palm against his heart, and a pure spiritual aura entered his body through her palm, dispelling the cold air on his body. She stood guard by his side and checked his pulse from time to time. As time passed, she couldn't help but smile when she felt that his pulse was beating more and more vigorously. That night, she stood guard beside the ice bed, watching and paying attention to the changes in his body. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore and leaned against the side to sleep. "Master," the contracted beasts saw that she had actually fallen asleep on the ice bed and were worried that her body couldn't take the cold air. Thus, they used all their strength to help her up and bring her to the other bed to rest. Chapter 3800. When Lao Bai, who was squatting by the ice bed, saw Xianyuan Mose's fingers move slightly, he could not help but widen his eyes. He leaned forward to take a closer look and asked, "Do you think his hand is moving?" The little beast stared at Xianyuan Mose's hand. After a long while, they saw it move again. They said in unison, "It moved. It really moved. Is he going to wake up?" Sure enough, they saw his hand move again. Lao Bai did not know how he was doing, so he came to Fengjiu's side and said, "Master, Master, the Yama Lord's hand is moving, Master." Fengjiu faintly heard a voice saying that the Yama Lord's hand was moving. She almost instinctively opened her eyes and jumped up from the bed. "Master, the Yama Lord seems to be waking up. His hand is moving," Lao Bai said hurriedly. Hearing this, Fengjiu quickly got out of bed and walked towards the ice bed. She came to his side and checked his body. When she put her fingers on his pulse, Her nervous heart suddenly jumped, and her eyes were filled with surprise. She took out a silver needle and inserted it into his body again. When she put away the silver needle, she saw the eyelashes of the person who had been sleeping soundly tremble slightly, and he slowly opened his eyes. "Say," Fengjiu called out softly. This call was filled with unconcealable joy and excitement. She held his hand and felt his hand gently holding hers back. Xin Yuan Mose opened his heavy eyelids. When he saw her dressed in red beside him, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, revealing a smile. "Ajio." His voice was very soft, and he sounded very weak. However, hearing his soft call, Fengjiu's eyes turned red. "Yes, I'm here. She held his hand and pressed his hand tightly against her face. Xin Yuan Mose closed his eyes slightly, but there was a smile on his face. Seeing that she was fine in front of him, he was relieved. "Master, the Yama Lord has fallen asleep again." Lao Bai leaned forward to take a look. Seeing that he had fallen asleep again, he could not help but turn back to look at Fengjiu. Fengjiu smiled and said, "He just woke up and his body is still very weak. Let him sleep. It will gradually get better." As long as he woke up, she could slowly nurse his weak body back to health. She took a step back, and a gust of air rushed out, lifting Xin Yuan Mose from the ice bed and sending him to the bed. Now that he had woken up after taking the pill, there was no need for him to use the ice bed anymore. Right now, she had to prepare some medicine to help him recuperate so that he could recover as soon as possible. After she covered him with a blanket, she looked at Senior White and the others and said, "All of you take care of him while he's here. I'll come in once I have the time." "Master, don't worry. We know what to do." Senior White replied and grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Fengjiu nodded and then left the space. As soon as he returned to the cabin, Lung Shuang's voice came from outside. "Master, are you awake?" Fengjiu opened the door of the cabin, looked at the two people standing outside, and asked, "What's the matter?" Lung Shuang looked at Fengjiu and said, "Master, the other things have been taken care of. However, we caught a group of people from the Ouyang family. They were sneakily using medicine around last night and were caught by the mercenaries. Now they're waiting outside for Master to deal with them." Chapter 38:01. At this moment, about 50 meters away from the airship, the remaining 20 or so members of the Ouyang clan were tied to a tree with ashen faces. Compared to the old man's viciousness and unwillingness, the Ouyang clan head's expression was one of regret. If he had known this would happen, he would have brought his men and left this place. At least, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Genie Feng glanced at the Ouyang clan head and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He didn't think that they would follow them. Not only did they follow them, they even tried to use drugs to treat them. Now that they had ended up like this, even if he wanted to plead for mercy, he couldn't bring himself to do it. The underground mercenaries had already left. Because there were many casualties after last night, Du Fan saw that they didn't have any more tricks up their sleeves and let them leave. At this moment, there were only Genie Feng's mercenaries, the Ouyang clan's people, and Fengjiu's group left. When Fengjiu, dressed in red, slowly walked over, the old man raised his head and glared at her fiercely. Which? Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. She really didn't know where the word which came from. "Which? You colluded with the underground mercenaries and even used witchcraft. The surrounding beasts don't dare to come close. Even the number 1 mercenary group, Genie Feng, was used by you. What are your intentions? What are you scheming?" Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "What a joke. You have ulterior motives. You're greedy by nature and scheming against others. Now that you've ended up like this, you don't know how to repent. You've really opened my eyes." She glanced at him and ordered Du Fan, "This old man, cripple his cultivation and throw him out of my sight." Du Fan was surprised. He thought that his master would directly order them to be killed. He didn't expect that she didn't order to kill him, but to cripple his cultivation. However, in this kind of place, where beasts were everywhere, without his cultivation to protect his life, it was almost impossible for him to survive. Thinking about it, his master just didn't want to stain her hands with the blood of such people. Thus, he agreed and walked to the front and back. He said to the two mercenaries, "Bring him over." The two mercenaries glanced at Genie Feng, and after seeing him nod his head imperceptibly, they went forward to untie him and brought him in front of Du Fan. "Kill me if you dare. This old man is not afraid of death." The old man gritted his teeth and roared. His eyes were like a ferocious beast as he stared at Du Fan and Feng Jiao with a bloodthirsty glint. He struggled to rush forward, but unfortunately, all his major acupoints had been sealed. Moreover, there were two mercenaries holding him down. Seeing this, the Ouyang family head moved his lips. However, he did not say anything in the end. He couldn't even protect himself, so what else could he say? "Kill you. You should be thanking the heavens and earth that my master didn't kill you and crippled your cultivation and spared your life." Du Fan snorted coldly. The next moment, he struck out with his palm and shattered the inner core in his dantian. No one else could hear the sound. Only the old man himself knew that when the palm landed, the force accurately hit his Niden. With a cracking sound, his Niden instantly shattered, and his cultivation gushed out madly with the shattering of his Niden. It quickly rushed out of his body, and his body was rapidly aging. Chapter 38:02. They watched as the elder's cultivation was crippled. They watched as his body rapidly shrank. His entire person aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. His original appearance could not be seen at all. They were shocked and panicked. They were afraid that they would end up like this. The elder's cultivation was completely gone, and his entire person became so old that his teeth fell to the ground. His back was bent, and his body was trembling. He curled up on the ground and did not even have the strength to cry out. "Throw him somewhere where he can't be seen." Du Fan ordered the two mercenaries to do it. The two mercenaries stepped forward and dragged him up. After throwing him away, they returned. Fortunately, because Feng Jiao and the rest were in the main area, the ferocious beast did not dare to come near. Therefore, for a while, the elder was still lying in the weeds, on the verge of death. The people of the Ouyang family were all tensed up. Even the young men and women didn't dare to breathe loudly at this time. They all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Feng Jiao and the others, fearing that they would be the next to be crippled. "Tell me, how should we deal with you?" Feng Jiao asked. His gaze swept across the people and finally landed on the Ouyang clan head. "I clearly told you not to provoke us. Why didn't you listen?" The Ouyang clan head looked at Feng Jiao and said, "Madam, please give us another chance. As long as you're willing to let us live, I, Ouyang Yuan, will never forget it." "Let you live? And what did you do? Want to use medicine to deal with us?" Feng Jiao sneered. "I've always been a person who clearly distinguishes between kindness and hatred. Repaying evil with good is not my nature." Ouyang Yuan's heart couldn't help but sink. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Indeed, she had already warned them to leave and not follow them. But they still came. They even listened to the elder's words and used medicine to deal with them. They were confident that even if they knew how to refine pills, they would not be able to distinguish the smell in the air. But who knew? "Madam Xianyuan, could you spare their lives?" In the end, Genie Feng still opened his mouth to plead for them. After all, he and Ouyang Yuan were friends. Regardless of whether his words would work or not, he felt that he should try. Feng Jiao glanced at him and said with a half-smile, "You want to plead for him?" Genie Feng felt his scalp go numb when she looked at him like that. However, now that things had come to this, he could only brace himself and say, "Although I know that I shouldn't, I still hope that Madame Xianyuan can spare their lives. If I let them live today, they might take my life in the future." Feng Jiao said casually. Although she didn't think that they had the right to take her words, she knew that if she let them go, things wouldn't end like this. "Madame Xianyuan, we are willing to make a curse. We don't dare to expect to be your subordinates, but we are willing to go through fire and water for you, just for a chance to live, because we don't want to die." Ouyang Yuan said. Even if he had to use his life as a curse, he still hoped to live at this time. Chapter 38:03. Hearing this, Ouyang Yuan was stunned for a moment. His body trembled, and he could not hide his excitement. "Thank you, madam." Extracting a strand of divine sense and putting their lives in their hands was better than dying here. Moreover, he felt that this madam was not a bloodthirsty person. Otherwise, she would not have spared them so easily. "Father, we don't have to die?" A woman next to him asked Ouyang Yuan in a trembling voice. Ouyang Yuan took a deep breath and said, "From this moment on, you must remember Madame Xuan Yuan's kindness. You must not have a trace of resentment, and you must not spread what happened here." Yes, nearly 100 people came out, but now there were only 20 or so people left. These 20 or so people were all experienced and strong cultivators, as well as Ouyang Yuan's sons and daughters. Now that they heard this, how could they have any other thoughts? It was good enough that they could survive. Du Fan looked at them, then walked forward and extracted a strand of divine sense from each of them. Then, he let them go and let them leave first. After dealing with the matters here, the flying ship also left and went out of the forest. Seeing the flying ship leave, the people of the Ouyang family could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, a young man next to them said, "I thought she would kill us. I didn't think she would let us go." Another person said. After taking a deep breath, he looked at the Ouyang family head. "Family head, are we going out now?" Let's go." Ouyang Yuan said. Just as he was about to step out, he heard his daughter's voice. "Father, then what about the grand elder? Should we take him out?" The woman asked carefully. Hearing this, Ouyang Yuan's face sank. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have suffered such heavy casualties, and we wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. Now that his cultivation has been destroyed, he can only wait for death. Let's go. Don't care about him. This is what he deserves. When the people heard this, they did not dare to say anything and just quickly left with him. 2 days later, the spaceship stopped and landed somewhere in the forest. Qin Xin was cooking medicinal porridge. This pot of porridge was made with ginseng and spirit chicken caught in the forest. In addition to ginseng, there were also a few medicinal herbs that could replenish qi and adjust one's vitality. A faint medicinal fragrance also diffused along with the light smoke, causing the surroundings to emit a medicinal fragrance. At this moment, Feng Jiu was inserting silver needles into Xianyuan Mo's body. Ever since that person woke up for a while, he hadn't woken up, which made her a little worried. Today, after coming in, she helped him insert the silver needles again to move his meridians and blood. After sitting in the space for a while, she went outside. Seeing Qin Xin cooking porridge, she said to Lung Shuang, "Go and see if the porridge is ready." "Yes." Lung Shuang responded and went down. He came to Qin Xion's side and asked, "Qin Xion, is the porridge ready?" Qin Xion looked back at him and said with a smile, "It's ready. I was just about to bring it to the master." As she said, she scooped a bowl of porridge and sent it to the spaceship. Lung Shuang followed behind. After getting on the spaceship, he saw the master take the porridge and enter the cabin. Chapter 3804. Perhaps it was because he heard Feng Jiu's voice, or perhaps his body was gradually recovering. Xianyuan Mo slowly opened his eyes and looked at Feng Jiu sitting by the bed. Seeing that he had woken up, Feng Jiu was overjoyed and said, "I'll help you sit up and eat." She leaned forward slightly and helped him sit up against the headboard of the bed. When Xianyuan Mo sat up and saw her bulging belly, a trace of daze appeared in his eyes. He stared blankly at her belly. Seeing this, Feng Jiu pursed her lips and smiled. She took his hand and stroked her belly, saying softly, "Mose, we have children. I'm pregnant with twins of mixed sex. In 2 or 3 months, the children will be born." Xianyuan Mose listened to her words, and his mind went blank. He was going to be a father? They had children? For a moment, his chaotic mind gradually became clear, and his heart was filled with ecstasy. But when he thought about how he was unconscious and could not accompany her, especially when she had to take care of him while she was pregnant, he could not help but feel distressed and guilty. "Aju, you've worked hard." He held her hand. His voice was slightly hoarse, and he was still a little weak. "It's not hard." She smiled slightly. She did not tell him that her health was also very bad when she was pregnant, and it was only later that she slowly recuperated. Xinyuan Mose looked around and asked, "Why am I here? I'll feed you porridge first. I'll tell you in detail later," Fengjiu said as she brought the porridge over from the bedside. She scooped up a spoonful and blew on it before feeding it to him. Xinyuan Mose ate the porridge cooperatively. The taste of medicinal herbs in his mouth was mixed with the taste of ginseng. As soon as it entered his stomach, his body gradually warmed up. As he ate, he looked at her. Seeing that her face was rosy and her complexion was good, he was relieved. After finishing the bowl of medicinal porridge, Fengjiu put the bowl to the side and helped him pull up the quilt. Only then did he say, "Do you still remember the profound light gate we discovered back then? After you were seriously injured and fell into a coma, I helped you recuperate while protecting your heart meridians. However, at that time, I didn't find any method or medicine to treat you. Furthermore, my green lotus has stopped growing after that battle, so it no longer provides any life force. I originally wanted to find an ancient golden lotus to help you expel the black lotus chi in your body. However, after coming here, I haven't been able to find any information about the ancient golden lotus. However, after flipping through the ancient records, I did find some rare and precious elixirs that can expel the black lotus chi. Therefore, I came to the barren land to pick the last medicinal ingredient and refine it into a pill for you to consume." Speaking to this point, she smiled faintly. Fortunately, the pill was successfully refined and the medicinal effects were as I expected. After consuming the pill, the black lotus chi in your body has been completely dispersed. Right now, your body is weak. As long as you rest and recuperate for a period of time, you'll be able to recover. Hearing her words, Xinyuan Mose's eyes slightly moved. It was unknown what he thought of, but a strange look flashed across his eyes. What's wrong? Fengjiu had been looking at him all this time, so she naturally didn't miss the strange look in his eyes. Xinyuan Mose pressed a hand on his leg and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "My leg doesn't seem to be able to feel it." Ever since he woke up, he found that his leg didn't seem to be able to move. Chapter 38:05. His leg, which should have reacted to her knock, didn't react at all. It was still straight. Seeing this scene, her heart sank. She tried the other side, but it was still the same. There was no reaction at all. Seeing her face change slightly and become serious, his heart was unwilling to part with her. He comforted her, "Gio, don't worry. Maybe you'll recover after a while." Fengjiu did not give up and pressed the acupuncture point between his legs, but there was still no reaction. She looked up at him. "When I checked your body had already recovered and the blood between your legs was flowing. I didn't think that." Her voice paused and she did not continue. Her heart was filled with self-blame. Xinyuan Mose reached out to hold her hand. His low and hoarse voice was filled with indifference. "You don't need to blame yourself. It's already very good that I can wake up. It's just a pair of legs. Even if I can't walk, I can still accompany you. I'll cure you." She looked at him and her eyes were filled with determination. "I'll definitely cure you. I believe in you." Xinyuan Mo smiled and rubbed her hair. He reached out and pulled her into his embrace with a satisfied smile on his face. "Gio, being able to wake up and see you again, I'm already very happy. I'm really afraid that if I continue to sleep, I'll miss the chance to give birth to the next generation for me. I'll miss our child's growth. I'll miss everything. But now it's not too late. I'm already very satisfied and very happy." Hearing his words, Fengjiu's mood gradually eased. She reached out and hugged him as her lips revealed a smile. "You're right. As long as you're by our side, it's enough." As long as she was given time, she would definitely be able to make him stand up again, because Xinyuan Mose had been in a deep sleep for several months. Fengjiu told him everything that had happened during this period of time. Then, she told him to rest and recuperate. She would let him out when they returned to the small house in the center of the lake. After all, other than the people around her who knew that she had brought Mose into her space, no one else knew. If he suddenly appeared in front of everyone, they would not be able to explain why he suddenly appeared. At that time, Once the fact that she possessed an artifact was exposed, it would only add to her troubles and dangers. Outside, she said to Qin Xian, "Go and call Hui Lang and Du Fan over." "Yes." Qin Xian responded and turned to tell them to board the spaceship. Not long after, everyone gathered around the spaceship. Feng Jiu glanced at Genie Feng and the others who were resting not far away from the spaceship. He stretched out his hand and set up a soundproof barrier. Then he said to them, "I have two news for you. One is good news, and the other is bad news." When everyone heard this, they could not help exchanging glances. Hui Lang looked at her and asked, "Madam, is the good news that Master has woken up?" Feng Jiu glanced at him and nodded. "That's right. Moses already woken up. When we return to the city, his body should have recovered." As soon as she finished speaking, everyone could not help but reveal a joyful smile. "That's great. The bad news is that there's something wrong with his legs. He can't stand up," Feng Jiu said, pursing her lips and frowning slightly. Chapter 38:06. Hui Lang. Du Fan shouted and reached out to catch him. If Yama Lord really could not stand up, the person who would be most worried would be his master. Hui Lang seemed to have realized that his words were inappropriate. He pursed his lips and said, "Madam, I'm just worried about Master." "I know," Feng Jiu said. "Back then, in order to save his life and protect his heart, I sealed the energy of the Black Lotus in his lower body. It is probably because of this that he lost feeling in his legs. However, I will use all means to cure him." Her voice went from light to heavy, especially the last sentence, which showed her determination. "I am telling you all this so that you can be mentally prepared." She looked at them and said, "All right, go and rest. We will set off tomorrow morning and speed up the return journey." "Yes," everyone replied and watched as she removed the soundproof enchantment and turned to walk towards the cabin. The return journey was as smooth and peaceful as the journey they had come. After about 10 days of travel, they arrived at the mountain path outside her city. When they arrived, Feng Jiu kept the flying ship and sat in the carriage that came to pick her up after receiving the news. "Commander Jean, thank you for taking care of us on this journey. If there is a chance in the future, we will work together again." In the carriage, Feng Jiu lifted the curtain and looked at Genie Feng and the 20 mercenaries behind him and smiled. Hearing this, Genie Feng hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "It was all thanks to Madame Xin Yuan and everyone else that my 20 brothers were able to return safely. In the future, if Madame needs us for anything, please don't hesitate to ask. This Jean will definitely not refuse." The corners of Feng Jiu's lips curled up slightly as she replied, "All right." She then lowered the curtain. As the carriage slowly moved forward, Du Fan, who was at the side, looked at Genie Feng and the mercenaries. He smiled and said, "Captain Jean, I will have someone send the rest of the commission to you later. Please." He raised his hand and saluted, then followed the carriage and left. Genie Feng did not even have time to speak before seeing them leave. Seeing them enter the city first, he then turned to the mercenaries behind him and said, "When you go back, remember not to mention anything related to them to anyone, not even the other mercenaries in our group." He paused and said in a low and dignified voice, "Keep your mouth shut. This is not only for your own good, but also for the other brothers. Do you understand?" "Understood. Don't worry, Commander." The 20 mercenaries replied in unison and made a mental note. If it was in the past, they would more or less use it as a joke to show off. However, this time, Madame Xin Yuan and the others were so powerful that they did not dare to be impudent in the slightest. Especially after personally witnessing the way they treated some people, they did not dare to act rashly. "It's good that you understand. Let's go. Let's go back too. Tonight, we'll call the other brothers to have a good drink and a big meal," Genie Feng said with a smile and led them into the city. Chapter 38:07. When she saw this, she smiled and went forward to take a look at the wheelchair. Then, she walked into the room and brought Xin Yuan Mose out of her space. After recuperating, his complexion had recovered, and he looked very energetic. The only thing was that he could not feel his legs. Fengjiu looked at him and said, "Mose, let me help you bathe," she said with a smile. Then she went outside and ordered the Lung Shuang, who was waiting outside, to prepare water for the bath. Xinyuan Mose looked at her and said, "You're pregnant now. How can you do this? Get someone to prepare the water, and I'll do it myself." "No, it's not convenient for you to do it yourself," Fengjiu said. Xinyuan Mo smiled and said, "I can't feel my legs, not my hands. Don't worry, I could do it myself." It was just that his legs could not walk. He could still bathe by himself. When she saw this, Fengjiu thought about it and said, "Then I'll help you scrub your back. Don't worry, it won't hurt the child." In the end, Xinyuan Mose agreed to let her stay and help him scrub his back. When the water in the bathtub was ready, Fengjiu helped him into the wheelchair and pushed him behind the screen. When they arrived at the bathtub, Xinyuan Mose took off his clothes. When he took off his pants, he could not stand up. It was inconvenient. When Fengjiu saw this, she said, "Let me help you." He turned his head and looked at her with a smile as she walked forward. Then he supported himself with both hands on the sides of the wheelchair. She went forward and bent down to help him take off his pants. After all, he was a young and vigorous man who had been in a coma for a few months. It would have been one thing if he had not had sex in the past, but those who had had sex did not get close to women. Now that the person he loved was in front of him, and she was helping him do such an intimate thing, his heartbeat suddenly became chaotic. There was a faint impulse in his lower abdomen. His body's instinctive reaction made him feel a little awkward at this moment. A Jew was still pregnant, and his legs could not stand up. However, once she got close to him, he actually became so impulsive. He really should not have done so. He tried to suppress the heat in his lower abdomen, but when his pants were taken off and he sat naked in front of her, the impulse that he tried so hard to suppress rose up again. His body's instinctive reaction and her surprised gaze made him a little uncomfortable. "Ahem, a Jew, you could go out. I can do it myself." As he spoke, he slapped the wheelchair with both hands, and his entire body flew into the bathtub. The water overflowed as he entered, splashing all over the floor. Fengjiu didn't dodge, and the corner of her skirt was slightly splashed with water. She walked forward and looked at the awkward and arrogant man, and couldn't help but smile. "I say, have you forgotten who I am to you?" She walked in front of him and raised her eyebrows as she looked at him calmly. Xinyuan Mose was stunned. His deep gaze met her smiling eyes, and his deep voice was magnetic as he said, "You are my wife, am I a Jew?" Fengjiu nodded and said, "It's good that you know." As she spoke, her smiling gaze fell on him. She stood in front of him and reached out to untie her belt and take off her coat. Her hands did not stop when the clothes fell to the ground. Instead, she took them off one by one. "A Jew, what are you doing?" Chapter 38:08. Fengjiu smiled charmingly when she heard this, and her beautiful eyes carried a wisp of seductive charm. "Could it be that you can't tell what I want to do?" Xinyuan Mose's heart skipped a beat. Her voice was gentle and flirtatious, with a hint of seduction. His eyes gradually darkened. He didn't look away again. He just looked at her body that had become full because of her pregnancy. His eyes were burning like flames. He watched as she took off her clothes one by one. She stood naked in front of him. Her snow-white skin was like jade with a gentle luster. Her beautiful figure was as seductive as when she had just gotten married. The only difference was that now she was pregnant with a child. Her twin peaks were fuller, her belly was bulging, and her hips were perky. The mature charm she exuded was even more seductive. Fengjiu stepped on a small chair and stepped into the bathtub. Her body sank, and she sat directly on his legs. The water overflowed from the tub. She leaned forward and leaned close to his body. "Zay, touch it." She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. Xinyuan Mose lowered his head slightly and looked at her bulging belly in the water. Their hands overlapped and gently pressed against her belly, letting him feel the light kick through her thin belly. "Aye, you kicked me," Fengjiu whispered. Looking at his nervous expression, she immediately smiled. "Recently, the fetal movement has been more serious. From time to time, it would kick me." Xinyuan Mose was startled by the kick. His hand instinctively shrank back, and his expression became nervous. After hearing her words, he frowned and asked, "Does it kick you often?" "The fetal movement is normal. It's just a light kick. It's not a problem." She chuckled and looked at him. "Let me help you wipe your back. Otherwise, the water will turn cold." Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose recovered. He looked at her with dark eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Okay." In the bathtub, after Fengjiu helped him wipe his back, she looked at him and smiled. Her slender white hand gently lifted his chin and leaned over to kiss his lips. Her hand slowly moved down his chest. The next day, the two people sleeping on the bed looked gentle and relaxed. In the quiet morning, Xinyuan Mose opened his eyes and looked at Fengjiu in his arms. He couldn't help but reveal a doting smile. One of his hands was used as a pillow by her, and the other hand was originally on her waist. At this moment, he gently lifted it and pushed a strand of hair that fell on her face behind her ear. Perhaps this subtle movement woke her up. She rubbed in his arms and didn't open her eyes. She just murmured, "Sleep a little more." Hearing her murmur, Xinyuan Mose couldn't help but smile. He accompanied her to sleep here. It wasn't until close to noon that she lazily opened her eyes in his arms. "Awake?" A low voice entered her ears. Fengjiu's face also bloomed with a smile. "And awake." She reached out to hug him and said, "I'll take you to walk around this small house in the middle of the lake. It's quite big inside, and the scenery is good." "Okay," Xinyuan Mose responded and let her get up first. Chapter 38:09. "I'm fine. There's no need to press." As he spoke, he propped himself up with one hand on the bed. His legs were numb, so it was somewhat inconvenient for him. Thus, he moved to the side of the bed and began to put on his clothes. After Fengjiu got out of bed, she put on her clothes and came over to help him put on his clothes. Then she said, "I'll go wash up first. I'll get some water for you later." Xinyuan Mose took her hand and said, "Jiu, just let the servants do it. You're pregnant, so you shouldn't do everything yourself. These things aren't that big of a deal. Moreover, it's good to move around more." She pursed her lips and smiled, saying, "I just came back today, so I'll sleep a little later. From tomorrow onwards, you have to accompany me around the Fu more." Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose said, "All right, but things like getting water and washing up can be done by the servants. Don't tire yourself out." Unable to persuade him, Fengjiu finally compromised and said, "All right, then I'll go wash up. I'll get Lung Shuang to bring water in." As she spoke, she called outside. The people in the Fu had been waiting for the two of them to appear since early in the morning, but they didn't see them the entire morning. It wasn't until noon that they heard the sounds of them waking up. In the Fu's garden, Du Fan, Hui Lang, and the others were sitting in the pavilion drinking tea and chatting. When they heard that the two masters had woken up, they couldn't sit still. "Let's go over now. Master and Madam should have already washed up," Hui Lang said. He hadn't seen his master for a long time and really wanted to see him. Du Fan smiled and fanned the fan in his hand, saying, "Let's go. It's a joyous occasion that the Yama Lord has awakened. We have to celebrate tonight. I'll book a banquet later and call Chi Kong back for a gathering." Luo Yu smiled and said, "I sent him a message early in the morning. I reckon he'll be here as soon as he finishes his work." "Oh, right. The assassination organization that ambushed you on the way last time has been dealt with. Not a single one of them is left. However, this movement accidentally caused too much of a commotion. Now, the outside world is discussing who it was that uprooted that organization, and we have also released the news. Now, the name of Yin Dian can be said to be well known here." They talked as they walked. When they arrived at the courtyard, they saw that the two masters were already eating in the courtyard. Without waiting for Du Fan and the others to speak, Hui Lang had already rushed forward and looked at Xinyuan Mose with joy. "Master, you're finally awake." Xinyuan Mose nodded slightly and glanced at Hui Lang. "Master, Yama Lord." Du Fan and the others stepped forward and bowed to them. "All of you are here? Have you had breakfast?" Fengjiu asked. "We've all eaten, Master," everyone replied. "Since you've all eaten, go back and tell Mose about all the things you're doing." Feng Jiao instructed them to go back and tell Xin Yuan Mo's about all the forces in their hands and the things they were in charge of, so that he could familiarize himself with all the forces they controlled here. Yes, everyone replied in a low voice. On the other side, in the East City Lord's mansion, Qi Kong was staring at the old man in front of him with a dark expression. I've already said that we don't need the help of the people sent by the immortal sect. Go back to where you came from. Chapter 38:10. Hearing this, Qi Kang's face darkened. He glanced at him coldly and asked, "Then let me ask you, does your sect master know that you were sent here?" The sect master is in seclusion. Naturally, he doesn't know about this. The old man said slowly. Then what about your great elder? Qi Kong asked again. Great elder went out and hasn't returned yet. The old man didn't even lift his eyelids. Hearing this, Qi Kong didn't ask anymore. He looked at the old man in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Guards, get him out of here right now. Don't let him step into the East City Lord Mansion." As soon as his voice rang out, the 4 black-clothed guards in the dark quickly flashed out and surrounded the old man. They stepped forward to seize the old man, but who would have thought that the old man would actually move and avoid their hands? "East City Lord, are you going to use force on me?" The old man looked at Qi Kong and asked. Qi Kang's face darkened. He said, "I'm asking you to leave. I've already made it very clear to you that I don't need a steward from your sect here. East City Lord, you should think carefully. If you chase me out like this, you're disrespecting the people of the immortal sect. You don't care about the etiquette of the immortal sect. Have you thought about the consequences of this?" The old man's voice was low and his eyes were filled with displeasure. Obviously, he was very displeased with his lack of understanding. When Qi Kong heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched. "It must be one of the peak masters who asked you to come here, right?" His voice paused, and he took a step forward with his hands clasped behind his back. His robust body seemed to contain endless power. He stood in front of the old man, and with a somewhat condescending aura, he said, "You've lived for so long. Why don't you think about it? Why didn't your sect leader give the order? Why did your great elder go back early? Also, why am I qualified to be the East City Lord?" With every sentence, he took a step forward. Step by step, he forced the old man to step back. He didn't think about it before, but at this moment, he was terrified. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his heart was in a mess. He was indeed here on the orders of the Peak Master. Now that he heard what the Peak Master said, he was secretly shocked. "Take him away." Qi Kong flicked his sleeve and shouted. Several black-clothed men were about to step forward, but at this moment, the old man flicked his sleeve and shouted, "I can walk on my own." With that said, he turned around and walked out. After being pestered for the whole morning, Qi Kong finally saw him leave. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After handing over the matters of the City Lord's mansion, he prepared to leave. "East City Lord, Qi Kong?" As soon as he stepped out of the city gates, a thunderous voice rang out. Qi Kong, who had already stepped out of the gates, frowned when he heard the voice. He looked around but saw nothing. "Who's there?" Qi Kong shouted. He saw a group of black-clothed men holding swords come out and attack him. After the group of black-clothed men attacked with swords, 3 people of different ages and wearing strange clothes came out from the dark. They were staring at Qi Kong, who was not far in front of them. The auras of the 3 people were extremely powerful. It was as if they had merged into one with the space. It was extremely difficult to find them. Moreover, if they hadn't come out on their own, he was afraid that even if he released his divine sense, he wouldn't have been able to find them. Chapter 38:11. Dozens of men in black appeared in front of the governor's mansion and surrounded Qi Kong. The guards in the governor's mansion quickly rushed out. However, after seeing the scene outside, no one dared to approach. The sword formation formed by the dozens of men in black trapped Qi Kong tightly like a spider's web, not giving him a chance to retreat. Trapped in the sword formation, if he was careless, he would be injured by the sword Qi. In serious cases, he would even be cut in half at the waist. The sword formation surged with an extremely powerful aura. Just the aura of pressure that permeated the surroundings was enough to make the guards not dare to step forward to help. With such strength, if they stepped forward, they would probably only end up dead. Whoosh! Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sharp airflow whistled past. Within the sword formation, Chi Kong avoided the blades in the sword formation while looking for a way to break the formation. After about half an hour, he found a way to break the formation. When he struck down with his sword, one of the men in black flew out with a bang. The sword formation instantly scattered and disappeared without a trace. The men in black were repelled by the powerful airflow. One by one, they staggered back a few steps and stared at Chi Kong vigilantly. Chi Kong did not attack them again. Instead, he stared at the three men in front. He saw that the two men on his left and right looked to be in their 40s or 50s, while the one in the middle was an old man. The old man held a black walking stick in his hand. He looked inconspicuous, but among the three men, the old man's aura was the most threatening. Kill him. The old man squinted his eyes and touched the walking stick in his hand. It was as if he was not the one who gave the order to kill. Dozens of men in black surrounded and attacked. Chi Kong frowned. He felt that this would take a lot of time. Thus, he turned his palm, and a flying sword instantly appeared in his hand. A powerful spiritual aura surged from his body and entered the sharp sword in his hand. The sharp sword in his hand quickly emitted a spiritual aura that could be seen with the naked eye. At the tip of the sword, the whistling sword aura swam. In the next moment, the long sword in his hand flew out and placed in front of him. At the same time, the killing intent and pressure contained in his body also burst out at this moment. You dare to find trouble with me? Die! Swish! Chi Kong bellowed angrily. Immediately after, the soaring sword slashed down fiercely. The sword chi that was visible to the naked eye formed a huge sword chi that rushed out with a swoosh. It attacked the men in black at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. Swish! Ah! Hiss! Ah! Sharp sounds of air currents and screams rang out. The thick smell of blood permeated the air in the next moment. Corpses fell in front of the gates of the city lord's mansion. Blood dyed the ground red, and the citizens watching from afar gasped in shock. Looking at this scene, the three people who had been watching from a distance narrowed their eyes. A sinister look flashed across their vicious eyes. The three of them stood in three different corners, as if they wanted to kill him. Therefore, they did not give him the slightest chance to escape their sight. The sword in Chi Kang's hand was pointed diagonally at the ground, and the aura of spiritual power surged on the blade. He looked at the three people in front of him and asked, "Who are you? Who instigated you to kill me?" "The dead don't need to know," the old man said, his murky and vicious gaze fixed on Chi Kong. Chapter 38:12. The pressure that was visible to the naked eye suddenly burst out and formed a powerful airflow that bounced the two people away. It happened so fast that they could not react in time. Ah! The two cultivators screamed as their bodies were bounced back by the airflow. At the same time, the blood in their bodies gushed out from their throats. Puff! Bang, bang. Two figures landed heavily on the ground more than 10 meters away. With just one blow, their faces instantly turned pale. Their bodies were trembling, and blood was still flowing out of their mouths. They couldn't stand up for a while. "A high god, you are hiding your strength." The old man widened his eyes in shock and disbelief. Judging by the powerful pressure that surged out of his body, it was clearly the aura of a high god. Previously, the strength he had displayed was only at the low god stage. He had never imagined that Chi Kang's strength would actually be so powerful. In the entire flying immortal city, only a few people in the immortal sect could be compared to a high deity expert. Chi Kang's face was dignified. He flicked his sleeves and put one hand behind his back. The pressure that surged out of his body was instantly withdrawn. He stood with his hands behind his back, glanced sharply at the old man, and shouted in a deep voice, "Capture them." Yes. The city guard behind him quickly stepped forward and detained the two cultivators who could not stand up. The old man saw that the situation was not right and immediately wanted to escape. However, as soon as he moved, Chi Kang's figure moved as well. Since you're here, don't think about leaving. As soon as his voice fell, his figure quickly swept out and his hand formed a claw to attack the old man. His speed was so fast that only a shadow could be seen flashing by. It was impossible to see his movement technique. The pressure of a high god enveloped the old man as his figure swept out. The powerful pressure was like a mountain that pressed down on the old man, making him unable to move even half a step. Because he couldn't move his body, his strength was suppressed by Chi Kang's pressure. Seeing that Chi Kang was about to grab him, the old man's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness and determination. He quickly activated his own spiritual aura, not to escape, but to detonate the inner core in his body and perish together with Chi Kang. Just as Chi Kang was about to grab him, he sensed that something was wrong with his opponent's aura. His expression changed, and he shouted, "Everyone, get out of the way! Get out of my way!" A voice filled with pressure and spirit force entered the ears of the surrounding people. Perhaps it was because of the pressure the surrounding people instinctively retreated after hearing his shout. Just as Chi Kang couldn't stop his hand gesture and could only roll in the air to avoid it, the old man raised his head and laughed heartily. Then, a loud explosion was heard. Bang! A powerful airflow erupted from the old man's body, like a landmine exploding, causing dust and mud to splatter. The airflow that splashed out whooshed towards the surroundings, causing many people to be injured by the airflow as they were unable to dodge in time. Chapter 38:13. Chi Kang frowned and looked around. He saw that many people had been injured by the flying rocks and air currents. Their heads were bleeding and they were wailing on the ground. Hence, he ordered in a deep voice, "Send the injured people to the medical hall for treatment and bandaging." "Yes," the city guard replied, and sent a group of people to bring the injured people to the nearest medical hall. "Clean up the ground and find out where they came from." He glanced around and looked at a middle-aged man beside him. "Lock up the two of them and wait for me to come back and interrogate them." "Yes," the middle-aged man replied. He did not dare to delay and quickly detained the two people. However, at this moment, the city guard's exclamation was heard. "Governor, it's not good. They're dead." The middle-aged man was shocked. He instinctively glanced at Chi Kang and quickly went to check on the two cultivators who had been put on the ground. Not long after, he quickly came to Chi Kang's side. "Governor, the two of them bit the poison pills hidden in their mouths. They're dead." He lowered his head and did not dare to look at him. This person died before he could interrogate them. In the end, it was his negligence. Chi Kang frowned and glanced at the two corpses. He did not expect that the two of them would choose to bite the poison pills and commit suicide after seeing the old man explode himself. However, who would want to kill him? Because of this episode, he wanted to go out and meet his master, but he turned back to the governor's mansion. It was not until evening that he left the governor's mansion through the back door and went to the small house in the middle of the lake. The scene that happened in front of the East City Governor's Mansion today had quietly spread. Although they did not know who the people who dared to go to the East City Governor's Mansion were. However, after this incident, the various forces in the city and the other three governors' manors knew that Chi Kang's strength was already at the level of a great deity. In a family, the head of the family who heard the news was having a discussion with a few managers in the family. "I heard from the people nearby that the East City Lord, Chi Kang, emitted an aura that was at the peak of the high god level. Since the last City Lord election, many people have been inquiring about his background, but there is still no news. Head of the family, in our city, only the patriarchs of a few families have the strength of a great deity. Otherwise, only the high-level experts in the celestial sect are qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as him. There are pros and cons for such a powerful person to become the East City Governor." Hearing this, another person asked, "What's the pros and cons?" The person who spoke glanced at that person and continued, "The strength of the Eastern City Lord of the Flying Immortal City is so powerful. The other forces naturally wouldn't dare to act rashly in the flying immortal city. This is a good thing, but the bad thing is I'm worried that after he has been in a high position for a long time, his strength will be the strongest among the four city lords. Chapter 38:14. Such a character. What kind of family does he come from? Why can't we find any information about him? An old man frowned and stroked his beard as he pondered. It's impossible for an outstanding character to be unknown, let alone such a character. Especially this Dongfang City Lord's temperament is not something an ordinary person can compare to. From this, it can be seen that he must be a famous character. The middle-aged man sitting next to him said, "But it's true. Not only did the people we sent not find any information about Dongfang City Lord Qi Kong, even the people from other forces were the same. No one has any information about him. It's as if he appeared out of thin air." Appeared out of thin air? The old man stroked his beard and shook his head. No, it's impossible for a person to appear out of thin air. It's just that his origin is mysterious, and we can't find anything about him. But what kind of origin could it be that we can't find anything about him? Unless... The head of the family hesitantly opened his mouth, but didn't say it out loud. There was only uncertainty in his eyes. Everyone in the hall looked at the pondering family head. Seeing that he didn't have any intention to speak, they couldn't help but look at each other. One of them asked, "Family head, unless what?" The family head looked at them and paused for a moment before saying, "Unless he's not from our continent." As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. A middle-aged man said in surprise, "Not from our continent? How is that possible? If he's here, then he must be from our continent. Maybe he's from some mysterious family." Speaking of the word mysterious, it reminds me of the people on the bounty list a few months ago. A middle-aged man said thoughtfully. Another person looked at him and said, "Aren't those people on the bounty list the ones who killed the immortal sex peak master and crippled their disciples?" It said that they later destroyed several families that put them on the bounty list. This matter was so big that even the people on the bounty list didn't dare to accept any bounties on them. It's because of this that other than some people who have seen the portraits on a bounty list, no one knows what they look like or where they come from. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the hall fell silent. No one spoke, as if they were thinking. There's only one East City Lord. You shouldn't be related to those people, right? Another middle-aged man said, "Besides, when the City Lord was chosen that day, the people of the immortal sect were all watching from the stage. If it really was East City Lord Qi Kong, how could..." At this point, he suddenly stopped talking, as if he had thought of something. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Everyone in the hall seemed to think of something. They glanced at each other and thought back to when the immortal sex Duan Yunhe saw Qi Kong. He was so shocked that he smashed his teacup. After a long time, the head of the family took a deep breath and said, "Let's leave it at that. It's good that you know. Don't tell anyone about this, lest you get into trouble." Everyone stood up with a solemn expression and replied solemnly, "Yes, we understand." Chapter 38:15. Master, speaking of which, our Lin family hasn't paid a visit to the East City Lord's mansion yet, right? The old man looked at the master and asked, "Should we find a time to pay a visit?" The master nodded. "Yes, I'll arrange it. I won't go these 2 days, so as not to make it seem too deliberate. Let's stay for a few days. I'll go to the East City Lord's mansion for a while." Hearing this, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After discussing some matters with the patriarch for a while, they all left. On the other side, Qi Kong, who they were talking about, was passing by other courtyards alone and came to the small house in the middle of the lake. It was already dark, and he was wearing a navy blue robe, so he was not conspicuous in the night. He turned and went into the small house in the middle of the lake, and heard Du Fan's voice with a smile. "City Lord Qi, you're finally here. The others are all here, and we're waiting for you." Du Fan smiled and walked towards him, still holding his fan in his hand. Qi Kong looked at Du Fan and said, "You're too free, aren't you? That's why you're so free. If you're too free, you can go to the East City Lord's mansion and help me do something." Ah, that won't do. I have to stay by your side and watch over you. Occasionally, when you want to eat something, I can run errands or something. He smiled and waved the fan in his hand gently. He came to Chi Kang's side and put one hand on his shoulder, saying, "Let's go. Tonight, we've prepared good wine and dishes to celebrate. But I heard that someone went to ambush you and went to the East City Lord's mansion. Yes, it doesn't seem like people from this city. They should be from other places. They're all dead before we find out who sent them," Chi Kong said and followed him inside. Could it be someone sent by the previous city lord? After all, you've just taken over the city lord's mansion, so you shouldn't have the chance to offend anyone. Du Fan smiled. He was not worried that Yi Fuqian would be injured. In his opinion, Yi Fuqian was the strongest among the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guard. Unless Yi Fuqian wanted to be injured, who could fight against him? Chi Kang's lips curled into a smile, but he didn't say much. He only asked, "Where's Master?" "Oh, the Yama Lord is awake. Although he can't walk now, Master has been taking care of him. They should be in the courtyard right now." Chi Kong nodded and said, "You go first. I'll go to my master and the Yama Lord, and I'll go with them to the front yard." "All right, then hurry up. Remember to call Master and the Yama Lord over." Du Fan patted him on the shoulder and said, before walking away, at the front, Hui Lang, Luo Yu, and the others were gathered there. Several tables were filled with food, wine, and fruits. In front of each of them, there was a short table for them to put their things. "Du Fan, didn't you go to pick up Chi Kong? Why are you back? Where's Chi Kong?" Seeing him come back alone, Luo Yu raised his voice and asked, "He went to Master's place. He'll be here in a while." Du Fan answered. He walked to a small chair at the side and sat down. He poured himself a glass of wine and drank. News came from outside today that the East City Lord was ambushed. "Is he okay?" Bai Qingcheng asked worriedly. Chapter 38:16. While they were chatting, Chi Kong went to the main courtyard. After meeting Xinyuan Mose and Feng Jiu, he told them about the current situation in the East City Lord's mansion, as well as the information he had found after taking over. "Master, during this time, I've read the archives in the East City Lord's mansion and found some clues about the ancient Golden Lotus. But I'm not sure yet." Hearing Chi Kang's words, Feng Jiu was surprised. "There's news about the ancient Golden Lotus? Master, please have a look." Chi Kong took out a shabby book and handed it to Feng Jiu. "I saw it in this continent records. It's recorded on page 135 that 100 years ago, the light of the Golden Lotus appeared in the Myriad Buddha's sect and shone on the earth. The trees within 100 miles of the Myriad Buddha's sect grew rapidly overnight, and hundreds of flowers bloomed." As Feng Jiu listened, she flipped to the 135th page. Indeed, there was information about the ancient Golden Lotus. However, there were only a few words on it. Xinyuan Mose, who was sitting in a wheelchair, listened to their words and pondered for a while. Then he slowly said in a low voice, "The Myriad Buddha's sect is not one of the 4 sects, but a Buddhist sect that is above all the sects on this continent. It is said that this sect has not appeared for 100 years, and almost no one knows where it is." Feng Jiu was slightly surprised. He looked sideways at him and asked curiously, "How do you know?" Xinyuan Mose smiled faintly. "I've been reading some books about this continent recently. Because he could not walk, he sat all day and did not have to deal with other things, so he found a lot of ancient books to read. It was because of this that he knew something about the Myriad Buddha's sect." Hearing this, Feng Jiu pursed his lips and smiled. "I don't know anything about the Myriad Buddha's sect. I've only heard of the 4 Immortals sect before. Only when Chi Kong told me today did I know that the Myriad Buddha's sect is above all the sects on this continent. Master, I'll investigate this matter. When I get the news and determine the location of the Myriad Buddha's sect, I'll report it to you." Chi Kong looked at the 2 of them and said, "They are all in the front yard. Master, do you want to go with the Yama Lord?" Feng Jiu handed the book back to him and said, "You can keep this. Let's go. Let's go together." Therefore, Chi Kong came behind Xinyuan Mose and pushed the wheelchair, walking with them to the front yard. At the same time, the person who returned to the Immortal sect arrived at Peak Master Sun's main peak. After having a disciple report to him, he stood outside and waited. Not long after, Peak Master's son walked out with his hands behind his back. Looking at the old man standing there, he frowned and asked, "Didn't I tell you to go to the East City Lord's mansion? Why are you back?" The old man stepped forward and said, "Peak Master, Chi Kong of the East City Lord's mansion drove me out. He said that the people of our immortal sect should not interfere in the affairs of the East City Lord's mansion, so I came back first." Hearing this, Peak Master's son's face darkened. Who is this Chi Kong? How dare he drive people of our immortal sect out? Isn't he afraid of offending our immortal sect? You're really arrogant once you reach the top. Chapter 38:17. Perhaps it was because Peak Master's son could not bear to hear him speak so highly of Chi Kong. His face darkened as he glanced at him and said in a contemptuous tone, "Just a mere East City Lord. How is he not an ordinary person? Besides, he's only been in the position for a short time. He probably hasn't even warmed up to the position of the East City Lord yet. Peak Master, Chi Kong is a peak high god," the old man said with a serious face. He looked at Peak Master's son, whose face had changed greatly because of his words. He sighed inwardly. No wonder the great elder came back early and didn't leave the people of the immortal sect at the East City Lord's mansion. He probably already knew about Chi Kang's true strength. What? A peak high god? How is that possible? Are you mistaken? Peak Master's son's face changed, and he looked at him in disbelief. How could a mere city lord of the East District be a pinnacle high god expert? I'm not mistaken. Not long after I was driven out today, a group of people, he told them what happened in front of the gate of the East City Lord's mansion. In the end, he said, if it weren't for the two cultivators who were ruthless and killed him, they probably wouldn't have been able to force him to show his true strength. Many people saw it at that time. I think the news has already spread in the city. Hearing this, Peak Master's son's face became serious. What is this Chi Kang's background? Where did he come from? He pondered and walked a few steps with his hands behind his back. Then he stopped and turned back to the old man. Go and listen. You must find out about him. The old man hesitated. He stood there and didn't answer. He didn't leave either. He just looked at Peak Master's son with hesitation. What? Do you have something to say? If you have something to say it. Don't hesitate. Peak Master's son said in a low voice. Peak Lord, I think it's best not to inquire about him anymore. You haven't come into contact with him, but after making a trip today and coming into contact with him, I feel that this person is very threatening. In front of him, I don't even dare to straighten my back and speak. The old man paused for a moment before continuing. When his sharp gaze swept over me, I felt as if my entire body was frozen in place. A wave of fear surged up from the soles of my feet straight to my heart. That kind of pressure, that kind of shock, he is not an ordinary person at all. I guess that his origin must be mysterious and extraordinary. Many forces and families have already been asking about him, but no one has any news about him. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. No one knows where he came from. After hearing his words, Peak Lord's son fell silent. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just stared off into the distance, thinking about something. The old man didn't know whether to leave or stay. Looking at the silent young man, he could only lower his head and wait quietly at the side. After a long while, Peak Master's son seemed to have regained his senses. He glanced at the old man and said, That's enough. You may leave. Yes. The old man responded, bowed, and turned to leave. Chi Kong, a peak high god expert? Peak Master's son murmured to himself. He wanted to meet this person. The night was getting darker. The dark and mysterious night sky was twinkling with stars. The white crescent moon hung in the night sky. It was so peaceful and gentle. Chapter 38:18. As the days went by, Fengjiu's belly grew bigger day by day. Especially when she was pregnant with twins, her belly was bigger than usual, which made her daily life more inconvenient. Especially when he saw how big her belly was, Xinyuan Mose was on tenterhooks every day as he pushed his wheelchair and followed her around. He was worried about this and that. It could be said that whenever Feng Jiu wanted to do something herself, he would look nervous at the side. Just like now, Feng Jiu was sitting at the table in the courtyard, flipping through an ancient medicine book. An old yellow paper between the books fell to the ground because of her flipping. She glanced sideways and was about to bend down to pick it up, but Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting next to her, had already shouted nervously, "Don't move. Lung Shuang, pick it up." Xianyuan Mose saw that she still wanted to bend down with such a big belly, and couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He pushed the wheelchair to her side and held her hand with one hand to let her sit down. Feng Jiu was stunned for a moment, and then laughed. "It's nothing. It's just picking up a piece of paper. It's nothing serious. Your belly is so big now. Let them do things like bending down to pick up things," Xianyuan Mose said with a straight face, but his eyes were full of worry. Ever since he had woken up, he had seen her belly grow bigger day by day, especially in the past month. When she was bathing, he had seen how thin her belly was, and he had been on tenterhooks. When he slept at night, he did not dare to touch her belly, for fear that his hand would press down on her belly. However, she was a restless person when she slept, which really gave him a headache. Okay. Let Ling Shuang come and pick it up," Feng Jiu said helplessly, sitting still. Ling Shuang picked up the things and handed them to her, and then quietly retreated to a corner. At the stairs in the courtyard, Qin Xian was also flipping through the medicine book. "You've been reading for the whole morning. Don't read for too long. I'll walk with you to the front yard." Xianyuan Mose closed the book in her hand. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled. "Okay, I've been sitting for a long time. It's time to walk." She stood up and said, "I'll push you." "No, I can do it by myself. You could just follow me," Xianyuan Mose said, and put his hands on the mechanism of the wheelchair. He pressed it gently, and the wheelchair moved forward. Feng Jiu looked at him and walked beside him and smiled. "This wheelchair is really good. It'll be more convenient for you to use." "Well, I'll get used to it," Xianyuan Mose replied. Hearing this, Feng Jiu looked at him and said, "I'll cure your legs. You'll definitely be able to stand up again." Her voice was calm, but there was confidence in it. She was telling him that as long as she was given time, she would definitely find a way to cure his legs. It was not impossible, but something that she would definitely do. The two of them walked around the small house in the center of the lake. Lung Shuang and Qin Xian followed them unhurriedly about 10 steps behind. After walking around, Xianyuan Mose looked at Feng Jiu, whose forehead was sweating a little, and said, "Are you tired? Let's sit over there." "Okay," Feng Jiu replied. She gently supported her waist with one hand, walked to the stone table under the tree, and sat down to rest. Chapter 38:19. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose couldn't help but look at her with pity. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. These days, she was pregnant and couldn't eat. She often got up in the middle of the night and sometimes couldn't sleep well. Her legs were slightly swollen. He saw all these, but he couldn't share the burden for her. He just quietly stayed by her side and watched her bear all this. He was secretly distressed. "Qin Xian, go to the kitchen and bring the stewed soup." Xianyuan Mose turned to Qin Xian, who was not far away. "Yes." Qin Xian responded and went to the kitchen. "Stewed soup again?" When Feng Jiu heard this, he looked like he had nothing to live for. God knows that these days he asked the kitchen staff to stew soup to nourish her body. Every day, she ate so much that she wanted to vomit. Now you eat 3 people's nourishment. You have to eat more nutritious things. Otherwise, your body is too weak. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he gently caressed her stomach with one hand and felt the heartbeat of the 2 little lives in her stomach. When the palm of his hand touched her belly, the children in her belly kicked gently so that his palm felt their existence. He couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. "It must be that bastard kicking you again. When he comes out in the future, I'll teach him a good lesson." Feng Jiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "That bastard is also your son. Besides, maybe it's my daughter who is kicking me. Daughters are generally more well-behaved. Only sons are more naughty." Xin Yuan Mose said matter-of-factly. Seeing the matter-of-fact look on his face, Feng Jiu couldn't help laughing. You will definitely spoil your daughter very much in the future. I just don't know who our two children will be like. Naturally, they will be like the two of us. Xin Yuan Mose said. Feng Jiu rolled his eyes. Our children must be like the two of us. So, I mean, will they look more like you? Or more like me? The daughter will be like you, and the son will be like me. Xin Yuan Mose said. As soon as the words fell, a smile appeared on his face. It seemed that he was imagining the appearance of the two little people in front of them in the future. The husband and wife here discussed here, laughing from time to time. Lung Shuang, who was not far away, looked at them. Not long after, Qin Xin brought the stewed soup to the table. Master, this soup should be drunk while it's hot. Okay, you can leave first. As Xin Yuan Mo spoke, he took the bowl of soup and blew on it. Seeing that it was still smoking, he said to Feng Jiu, "It's too hot. Let's cool it down first. Don't burn yourself." "Yes." Feng Jiu looked at him with one hand under his chin. Seeing him sitting in the wheelchair and holding the bowl of stewed soup in his hand to cool it down, Feng Jiu couldn't help but be infatuated with him. He was so outstanding. His handsome and resolute face had the unique charm of a man. Especially after going through so many things, he had become more mature and steady. His every move made people feel at ease. It made her feel that as long as he was by her side, no matter where she was, she would feel peaceful and at ease. The two of them had been to so many places, and there were mansions everywhere. But everywhere they went, as long as he was there, her heart would be at ease, and it was where her home was. Chapter 38:20. Feng Jiu pursed her lips into a smile. I think you're very pleasing to the eye. The years were so peaceful, and the days were so sweet. All of this was not easy to come by. Hearing her words, Xin Yuan Mo's black eyes also revealed a smile. He put the soup in his hand on the table and reached out to hold her hand. Their fingers intertwined, and a deep voice with a trace of love and affection came out of his mouth. The days are long. You can slowly appreciate it. The days are long, she softly replied. Seeing him push the bowl of soup in front of her, she picked it up and took a sip. How is it? Is it still hot? Xin Yuan Mose asked. No, it's just right. This was a nourishing stew. She drank a bowl every morning and night for the past few days. During this time, she felt that she had gained more than one size. After drinking the soup, she handed it to Qin Xin, who was waiting on the side. She saw him take out a small package from his sleeve. What is it? She peeked her head out to look. Sugar lotus seeds. Xin Yuan Mose opened the small paper package in his hand and said, Didn't you say that you were tired of drinking soup every day? I specially had someone buy sugar lotus seeds. Every time you drink a bowl of soup, you can eat one or two. As he spoke, he used a bamboo stick wrapped in the paper package to poke one in her mouth. Try it. Feng Jiu's heart was filled with sweetness. With a smile on her face, she glanced at him and opened her mouth to eat the sugar-coated lotus seed. The fine sugar powder in her mouth was accompanied by the fragrance of the lotus seed. It was sweet and delicious, and she couldn't help but narrow her eyes. It's delicious. Seeing that he was about to put it away, she said, You can keep it for me. I can eat it when I'm free. Don't eat too much. 1 or 2 occasionally is enough, so I'll keep it, Xin Yuan Mose said as he gave her another one. Then he said, Do you want to go back and sleep? Feng Jiu looked at him and said with a smile, I'm going back to sleep after drinking a bowl of soup? Aren't you afraid that I'll be so fat that you won't be able to recognize me? Xin Yuan Mose couldn't help but chuckle. I could recognize you even when your face was ruined. You've only gained weight. How could I not recognize you? Hearing his words, Feng Jiu was slightly startled. He said softly, That's right. Back then, you were able to recognize me even when I was like that. Now that I think about it, I didn't even realize that so many years had passed. We've encountered quite a lot of things over the years. She lowered her eyes and said slowly, Every time I feel happy that we can be together, I will think of Mo Chun who has passed away. I always feel like I owe him. Hearing her mention Mo Chun, Xin Yuan Mose's eyes flashed. He thought of the scene during the battle, when Nalan Imo-chun was dying, and the name she called out. "We all owe him," Xinyuan Mo said. He held Fengjiu's hand and said, "But he also wanted us to be happy. He wanted you to be happy too. This was his wish. Now that he's gone, we should live our lives well. Only when we're happy can we live up to everything he sacrificed his life for." Fengjiu looked up at him and stared into his black eyes. After a long time, he nodded. "Yes, you're right. Even if he's gone, we'll never forget him." Chapter 38:21. "What's the matter?" Xinyuan Mose looked at her and asked. "Come with me." As she spoke, she took his hand and flicked her sleeve. In the next moment, the two of them disappeared from Lung Shuang and Qin Xian's sight. Lung Shuang and Qin Xian saw the two of them disappear out of thin air. They did not say anything and just watched quietly, standing in place and waiting. Those who followed their master all knew that he had a secret space treasure. Otherwise, he would not have been able to bring the Yama Lord here while he was unconscious. And this was something that only his confidants knew. Xinyuan Mose saw that she had brought him into the space and was surprised. However, he did not ask any questions and just let her push his wheelchair to the space spirit spring. "Look, there's a small golden lotus growing in the spirit spring. This golden lotus is emitting a faint golden light." Fengjiu looked at the small golden lotus in the water and said, "When Imo-chun disappeared, he only left behind a golden lotus seed. This golden lotus seed was one of the golden lotus seeds that we obtained from the Stairway of Immortality. I gave him one, and he kept it with him. I didn't expect that when he disappeared, only this golden lotus seed did not disappear." Xinyuan Mose looked at the small golden lotus and saw that it was floating in the spirit spring. Because the golden lotus was so small, if one did not look carefully or if Fengjiu did not say anything, it would not have been easy to notice. The golden lotuses we obtained from the Stairway of Immortality were no ordinary objects. Even though they were not the original bodies of the ancient golden lotuses, they still had the aura of the ancient golden lotuses. Imo-chun left behind this lotus seed. Perhaps. He paused for a moment as he looked at the tiny golden lotus. "Perhaps what?" Fengjiu looked at him. Xinyuan Mose looked up and said, "Do you remember that you told me that Tian Jizi once said that Imo-chun was born because of you and will also die because of you? You are the only one who can break through his tribulation of life." Fengjiu was slightly startled and did not say anything. Xinyuan Mose looked at the spring water in front of him and said thoughtfully, "Maybe he can be reborn again." Fengjiu's heart trembled as his gaze fell on the tiny golden lotus. Could Imo-chun be reborn? Would he appear again? Will he come back to life? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, and in the end, only a soft murmur remained. If he can appear again, I only hope that the reborn him can live for himself. Xinyuan Mose didn't say anything. He just accompanied her quietly by the side of the spirit spring. After a while, the two people came out of the space. "Go back to your room and sleep for a while." Xinyuan Mose looked at Fengjiu and said, "Rest more, don't be too tired." Without waiting for Fengjiu to speak, he ordered Lung Shuang and Qin Xian, "Send your masters back to rest." "Yes." The two people responded and looked at each other before walking forward. Fengjiu looked at him and asked, "What about you? Aren't you going back to the courtyard with me? You woke up early today. Why don't you go back and sleep? I have some things to instruct Hui Lang. You go back first. I'll be there later." He patted her hand, indicating that she should go back first. Seeing this, Fengjiu didn't ask any more questions. He just nodded and followed Lung Shuang and the others back. Xinyuan Mose sat in the same place and watched her leave. When she couldn't be seen, he withdrew his gaze and called, "Ing-yi." Chapter 38:22. Tell them to investigate the Black Lotus. "Is there any news?" Xinyuan Mose asked in a low voice. Ever since he woke up, he had been accompanying Fengjiu, but this matter had always been on his mind. Back then, The Black Lotus Lord had cultivated the power of the Black Lotus and was extremely powerful. Now, the Black Lotus Lord was dead, but the Black Lotus had fallen into the hands of the demon Venerable. If he didn't settle this matter, he would be worried. Word came from Yin Dian that they couldn't find the whereabouts of the demon Venerable. Not only are our people looking for him, but so are the other forces. However, the demon Venerable hasn't shown himself since he took the Black Lotus. No one knows where he is hiding. Hearing this, Xian Yuan Mo's frowned. There was no news at all. Seeing his frown, Yingyi said, "But don't worry, Master. Our people have been looking for him. I'm sure they'll report to you as soon as there's any news." Yama Lord. As the two of them were talking, Leng Hua walked over and bowed to Xian Yuan Mo's. "What's the matter?" Xian Yuan Mo's looked at him and asked. "Duan Yunhe is here." As Leng Hua spoke, he realized that he might not know who Duan Yunhe was, so he said, "He's from the Lingxiao Celestial Sect." A few days ago, before he could finish, he saw Duan Yunhe raise his hand to signal him to stop. Xian Yuan Mo's glanced at him and said, "This lord knows this person. Where is he now?" Leng Hua said, "He's in the front hall. It looks like he has an urgent matter and wants to see Master. But I heard from my sister that Master just fell asleep." Xian Yuan Mo's responded and waved his hand to signal Ying Yi to leave. He said to Leng Hua, "Push this lord over." "Yes." Leng Hua responded and pushed the wheelchair to the front hall. In the front hall, Duan Yunhe sat with a cup of tea in his hand, but he didn't drink it. Instead, he glanced outside from time to time, but Feng Jiu was nowhere to be seen. Du Fan and the others were not in the Fu. At this moment, only Hui Lang was sitting in the hall. Seeing his anxious expression, Hui Lang ate a piece of cake and asked, "Why don't you tell me? Why are you in such a hurry to find my madam?" Duan Yunhe glanced at Hui Lang, but didn't say anything. He placed the teacup in his hand on the table and lowered his eyes. Seeing that he really didn't say anything, Hui Lang was too lazy to ask again. He just drank his tea and ate the pastries. After finishing his cup of tea, he was about to call the servants outside to add more tea when he saw his master coming over. He was so scared that he immediately stood up and walked out quickly. "Master, why are you here?" Hui Lang asked, glancing at Leng Hua. Why did he invite his master here? Xian Yuan Mo's glanced at Hui Lang and asked, "What are you doing here?" Master, I just came back and was about to go to the rear courtyard when I saw this man come over. Then I bumped into this person who came to the manor, so I stood guard here," he said embarrassedly, rubbing his head and moving to the side. Xian Yuan Mo's didn't bicker with him, and after he saw him leave, his gaze fell on the person who stood up inside and coldly sized him up with a forceful and fierce gaze. "You're Duan Yunhe?" he asked in a deep voice. "Yes. May I know who you are?" Duan Yunhe couldn't help but feel astonished when he saw the black-robed man sitting in the wheelchair. Who is this person? He's so outstanding. Chapter 38-23. This is my lord. Leng Hua's voice rang out at this moment, simply informing Duan Yunhe of Xian Yuan Mo's identity. Hearing this, Duan Yunhe's heart trembled. "My lord," that was Madame Xuanyuan's husband. Thus, he hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed before saying, "I've taken the liberty to visit. I truly have an urgent matter to report. If I've been rude in any way, please don't blame me." "Speak, what is it?" Xian Yuan Mo's came to the main seat, and the servant served him tea before retreating. At this moment, Duan Yunhe said, "I went out some time ago and only returned to the Immortal Sect yesterday. However, I heard that a few days ago, the Immortal Sect sent someone to the East City Lord's mansion to help out, but he was chased away in the end. After that person returned, he didn't go out and was only found dead in his cave residence yesterday. The Immortal Sect ordered an investigation and said that this matter was East City Lord Qi Kang's doing. Right now, they're already discussing bringing East City Lord Qi Kang back to the Immortal Sect to be dealt with." He spoke in one breath, then paused for a moment before continuing. "However, there are people in the Immortal Sect who know of your relationship with East City Lord Qi Kang. Now that things have gotten out of hand, people from the Immortal Sect should come to the small building at the center of the lake again. I hurriedly came to inform you when I heard the news. This was because he knew that Madame Xuanyuan's child was about to be born during this period of time. He was worried that this matter would implicate her. After hearing this, Xinyuan Mose glanced at him and asked, "You're also a member of the High Firmament Immortal Sect, but from what you've said, it seems that you don't suspect that this matter was done by our people. Why?" Duan Yunhe was startled and looked at him. Seeing that his black eyes were fixed on him, Duan Yunhe couldn't help but feel his heart tremble. After regaining his senses, he said, "Because the people in the Immortal Sect didn't come into contact with you, but I'm different. I've been in contact with you since the beginning, and I also know that you're not that kind of person. However, the Immortal Sect Master is currently in seclusion, so I can't let him know. There are also people in the Immortal Sect who incited this matter, so Xinyuan Mose did not ask who instigated it, nor did he ask what they would do to them. He only said indifferently, 'I know. You can go back.' Then he said to Lung Hua, 'See the guest out, please.' Lung Hua stepped forward with a gentle smile on his face. Duan Yunhe looked at Xinyuan Mose and hesitated for a moment before he said, 'I know that all of you are very strong, but this matter today wasn't ordered by the sect master. I hope that if you do anything, don't cause too much trouble for the Soaring Firmament Celestial Sect. Goodbye.' After saying that, he cupped his hands and bowed, then turned around and walked out. Seeing him leave, Xinyuan Mose's black eyes flashed with a dark light. He ordered in a deep voice, 'Call Du Fan and get to the bottom of this matter.' 'Yes,' Gray Wolf responded, and his figure flashed out. Not long after, Lung Hua returned. When he saw Xinyuan Mose in the hall, he asked, 'Yama Lord, if I count the days, Master should be due soon. Why don't we call everyone back?' Chapter 38:24. Hearing this, Lung Hua crossed his hands in front of him, bowed slightly, and replied respectfully, 'Yes.' At night, Fengjiu took out all the children's clothes from the cabinet and laid them out on the bed. She looked at them one by one and smiled. Today, Qin Xian and Lung Hua brought over a set of children's clothes. 'Look, these two were made by them. Their craftsmanship is really good.' Sitting at the table, Xinyuan Mose closed the book in front of him and looked up at Fengjiu. He saw that she was holding two sets of children's underwear in her hands, one blue and one pink. They were very cute. He pushed the wheelchair forward to her side and said, 'These two colors were chosen well. Have all the children's clothes been prepared? What about the other things that need to be used? Did you ask them to prepare them?' 'Yes, they've all been prepared. Except for a few pieces of clothing that they made themselves, the rest were custom-made from outside.' Fengjiu looked at the children's underwear, her face full of happiness and anticipation. 'What do you think our children will look like after wearing these clothes?' When Xinyuan Mose heard this, he chuckled and said, 'They'll still look the same.' 'What else can they look like?' Fengjiu rolled her eyes at him. 'Of course they'll be different. Look at this blue one. The sky blue color will make the children's skin look even better. And this pink one, they'll definitely look even cuter.' 'Yes, you're right.' He responded dotingly and watched as she folded the clothes one by one. His heart was filled with satisfaction and happiness. 'Master,' Huilang's voice came from outside. Xinyuan Mose's smile disappeared, and he said to Fengjiu, 'Go to sleep first. Don't stay up too late. I'll be back soon.' Fengjiu looked outside in surprise and said, 'Why is Huilang here? Did something happen?' 'It's just a small matter. Don't worry. Go to sleep.' He gently patted her hand, telling her not to worry, and pushed the wheelchair out. As soon as he left the room, Huilang went up to him and said, 'Master.' Just as he was about to speak, he was stopped by his gaze. 'Let's go to the study,' Xinyuan Mose said and walked out. Huilang glanced at the room and quickly followed him. Fengjiu walked to the door with one hand on his waist and watched the two of them leave. She felt that he was hiding something from her, but since he said that it was not a big deal, it was just a small matter, so it should be just a small problem. If he did not say, she would not ask, because she believed that even if there was something, he would take care of it. She pursed her lips and smiled. She gently stroked her belly with one hand and said to Lung Shuang, who was waiting at the side, 'Go and bring a bowl of bird's nest over.' Yes, Lung Shuang replied and walked out. Xianyuan Mose, who had gone to the study, looked at Du Fan and Hui Lang in front of him and said, Du Fan, you tell them. He asked Hui Lang and Du Fan to investigate together because Du Fan was meticulous. He would take note of the details that Hui Lang might have missed. Yes. Chapter 38:25. We started our investigation from this peak Master Sunday. Not only did we find out that the old man was killed by him, but we also found out that he was the one who instigated the other families to put a bounty on us. Therefore, we investigated his family and all the forces behind him. We found out that Peak Master Sun's name is Sun Wei, and he's a peak mid-celestial. His family, the Sun family, is rooted in the eastern district of the Spirit Immortal City and has a deep friendship with the previous eastern city governor. The Sun family is ranked 4th in the Spirit Immortal City. It can be said that they're very powerful, and ordinary people wouldn't dare to provoke them easily. It's precisely because of the Sun family's influence that Sun Wei is considered one of the peak masters in the High Firmament Celestial sect. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose's eyes darkened. He sat in his wheelchair and crossed his arms. His deep eyes revealed a sharp aura as he coldly ordered, "Collect all the evidence. Don't touch Sun Wei for now. This monarch wants his family to personally cripple him." Du Fan and Hui Lang glanced at each other and paused for a moment. Du Fan asked, "What does the Yama Lord plan to do?" "Don't touch him, Sun family's patriarch. We can make the Sun family lose a few of their patriarchs," Xianyuan Mose said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Du Fan's heart moved. His eyes flashed with a smile as he replied, "Yes, I'll do it right away." Seeing that he didn't have any other orders, he bowed and left. First, they would shock the Sun family, and then let the Sun family personally cripple Sun Wei. First, they could weaken the Sun family's power and pull them down from their position as the 4th family in the city. Second, if the Sun family wanted to protect their family, they had to do it according to their wishes and personally cripple Sun Wei. This was much more interesting than killing Sun Wei themselves. Looking at the dark night, Du Fan revealed a smile. When he walked outside, he met Lung Hua in the front yard. "Have you seen the Yama Lord? Do you have any orders?" Lung Hua asked warmly. "Yes, I have. I'm about to make a trip to the Sun family." Du Fan smiled. He gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand and asked, "Has everyone else returned?" Lung Hua nodded and replied, "Yes, they're back. They're in the front hall. You can ask them to come over." "All right, I'll go over and take a look. By the way, let them follow me to the Sun family. You stay in a manner to take care of Master. The Yama Lord's instructions are not to let Master know. I'm afraid she'll be worried." Hearing this, Lung Hua revealed a smile. "Okay, I got it. You guys be careful." Du Fan nodded and walked towards the front yard. Lung Hua watched him leave and also walked away. In the front yard's hall, Gu Mo, Luo Yu, and the others sat in the hall drinking tea and chatting. They talked about the recent matters at hand and the news they had just received. The people of the Soaring Firmament Celestial sect are really endless. If they dare to make a move against Master, I'll definitely cripple them. Luo Yu coldly snorted. When he spoke of this matter, a murderous aura burst out from his body. However, according to Duan Yunhe, this matter doesn't seem to be the intention of the Soaring Firmament Celestial sect's sect master. He said that the sect master is in seclusion and doesn't know what's going on in the sect. Guillemot said in a deep voice. Chapter 38:26. All right. There's still no news about this. I heard that the Yama Lord has already sent Du Fan and Hui Lang to investigate. They've already returned. When they see the Yama Lord, we'll know what's going on. Fan Lin said warmly. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the killing intent in their eyes. As they were talking, they saw Du Fan walk in from outside. When he saw him, Fan Lin smiled and said, "We were just talking about you." Du Fan smiled and walked forward. He sat down and said, "You're talking about the High Firmament Immortal sect, right? I just went to the Yama Lord. The Yama Lord has already given orders. I was just about to come over and tell you guys. What did the Yama Lord say? Luo Yu asked. Lung Hua had already told them when he came over. The Yama Lord didn't intend to let their master know about this matter. He didn't want her to worry about these things, so he also told them to keep their mouths shut. Du Fan picked up the tea on the table and smiled. Hui Lang and I went to investigate. This matter was started by a peak master of the High Firmament Immortal sect called Sun Wei. He's been targeting us time and time again. The Yama Lord has already said that you guys should come with me to the Sun family. Go to the Sun family? Which Sun family? What about the peak master surnamed Sun? Does the Yama Lord not plan to let us do it? Luo Yu asked. Du Fan sipped his tea and said, the Sun family is Sun Wei's family. They're ranked 4th in the city and can be considered a family with a strong foundation. The Yama Lord said that we don't need to touch Sun Wei. Let the Sun family do it themselves. Luo Yu stood up and said, then what are we waiting for? Let's go now. Guemo glanced at Luo Yu and then asked, did the Yama Lord say to make a move on anyone from the Sun family? If you want the Sun family to cripple Sun Wei themselves, I reckon that those with lower status in the family won't be able to do so. Du Fan nodded and said with a smile, the Yama Lord said that Hui Lang and I also investigated the people of the Sun family. Come take a look. He took out some documents from his sleeves and placed them on the table. He said to them one by one, the Yama Lord instructed me to make a move against the Sun family's family head generation. Thus, after investigating these people, I finally locked onto these few people. Several people gathered around and looked at the portraits on the table, as well as the notes below the portraits about the people in the portraits. In the end, they all discovered that the 5 people who were chosen by Du Fan had a high status in the Sun family. Moreover, they were secretly ruthless in their methods. These people can be said to be the pillars of the Sun family. At the same time, these people have secretly done many heinous things. Since the Yama Lord doesn't mean to exterminate their entire family, it's best to choose these few people. Du Fan said as he pointed at the portraits. Hearing this, Guemo and the others nodded. That's good. Let's choose these few people. Since no one has any objections, let's go now. Du Fan stood up with a smile and gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand. He glanced outside and said, it's late at night and quiet. It's a good time to make a move. Just a few people will be enough, right? It'll be too obvious if we go together. Moreover, we still have to guard the manor. Guemo said as he looked at the people beside him. Then you stay. I'm going anyway. Luo Yu said as he took a step forward. Chapter 38:27. Chi Kong is in the East City Lord Manor and can't come back. Moreover, he's in charge of the East City District and can't leave. We'll guard the small building in the middle of the lake. It's enough for the 3 of them to go with me to the Sun family. You guys stay here and guard the house. Master can't lack people here. As Du Fan spoke, he looked at Bai Qingsheng. Since you're back, go to Master's side and take care of her. Especially since Master is about to give birth. She can't be without someone by her side. Okay, I'll be there in a while. Bai Qingsheng nodded and replied. Guemo said, then you guys go. We'll guard here. Go early and come back early. Okay. The few of them responded and then went out. Their figures flashed and disappeared into the night in the blink of an eye. I'll go to Master's courtyard and change places with Qin Xian and the others. As Bai Qingsheng spoke, she left first. In the night, a few figures quietly flitted towards the Sun family in the East City District. At this time, most of the people in the city had already gone to bed. No one knew what kind of shocking thing would happen in this seemingly calm night. As the 4th largest family in the city, the Sun family was naturally not ordinary. Other than the guards inside and outside, there were also many experts in the manor. If they encountered other people, they would probably choose anyone to attack, but not the Sun family. However, it just so happened that they were targeted by Du Fan and the others. The 4 of them quietly entered the inner courtyard of the Sun family, as if no one was there. As they didn't know which courtyard the person they were looking for was in, Du Fan gave a signal with his eyes, and Wei Feng caught a guard. At the rockery, after they got the answer they wanted from the guard, they knocked him out and threw him into the rockery. Then, the four of them went to the courtyards in four different directions. In a courtyard, two people were entangled with each other. Faint sounds of heavy breathing and a woman's coquettish voice could be heard. Perhaps because the two people in the room were doing it, only a little maid was left outside the room to guard. There was not a single guard in the courtyard. Luo Yu flashed down, and his ghostly figure flashed past in an instant. Before the little maid could react, he had hit her acupuncture point and put her aside. Then he pushed the door open and walked in. Perhaps it was because they did not expect that someone would dare to barge into the Sun Manor at night, and even more so that someone would come to their room. As a result, the two people who were entangled in each other were intoxicated in that ecstasy, and simply did not notice that the room door had been quietly pushed open. Luo Yu silently walked inside. He stood by the screen and looked into the room. His gaze swept past the naked woman and landed on the middle-aged man lying on top of her. Seeing that his figure was robust and his muscles were distinct, it was obvious that his physique was not bad. At this moment, his face was flushed and beads of sweat seeped out from his forehead. He had an appearance of ecstasy and excitement. Although he was not wearing any clothes at this moment, there was a strange flush on his face. However, he was indeed one of their targets. After confirming their target, he sneered and slowly walked out. When the woman was about to cry out in surprise, he hit her acupuncture point with a flick of his finger. "Who are you?" Sun Yao was shocked, and his body suddenly trembled. Just as he was about to flip over and get down from the woman's body, he heard a voice that contained killing intent. "The person who wants you dead." Chapter 38:28. That person opened his mouth, yet wasn't able to make a single sound. His eyes were opened wide with terror, and his entire body fell down just like that, lying on top of the unconscious woman. Luo Yu glanced at the middle-aged man with disgust, and after he confirmed that the middle-aged man was dead, he walked out. On the other side, Wei Feng silently snuck into a courtyard. The person in the master bedroom was already sound asleep, and he could faintly hear the sound of snoring. He restrained his aura and walked over to the side of the bed, and with a wave of his hand, he set up a soundproof barrier before lifting up the bed curtains to take a look. A man and a woman were sleeping side by side on the bed, and the man was precisely the person he wanted to kill this time. Right after he raised his hand and tapped on the woman's sleeping acupoint, the middle-aged man that was sound asleep seemed to have noticed killing intent, and he instinctively opened his eyes. "Who is it?" A fierce shout sounded out, and he instinctively leaped up. However, he'd only just leaped up when a sword that was suffused with a cold light was pressed against his throat, and an icy cold and bone-piercing killing intent shot out with a sharp cold light, causing the hairs on his entire body to stand on end, and he didn't dare move in the slightest. Don't be rash. Let's talk." His face was ghastly pale, and his body stiffened, and he didn't dare move, as he was deeply afraid that the sharp blade would slice open his throat if he moved. "There's nothing to talk about." As soon as Wei Feng finished speaking, the sword in his hand pulled out, and a cold light shot out. That person didn't even have the time to dodge before falling down. The smell of blood suffused the room, and he glanced at the middle-aged man whose eyes were wide open before withdrawing the sword in his hand. He wiped it clean and put it away, and then he raised his hand to remove the soundproof barrier in the air before walking out. Du Fan and the others were the same. After they killed their target, they arrived at the agreed-upon place to wait, and it wasn't long before they returned. "How is it?" Du Fan asked. Luo Yu smiled. "It's done. It's the same for us." The other two replied. Du Fan smiled and said, "Then let's go. I've already left a message in the Sun Clan's patriarch's room." "Let's go." They replied before leaping out of the Sun Clan and taking advantage of the night to return. In the second half of the night after they left, a shrill cry broke the silence of the Sun family. Due to the shrill cry, the guards and people in the mansion quickly rushed over. "What happened?" "Third Master? Third Master?" The leader, a man in his 30s, knocked on the door and called out, but he only heard a woman scream from inside. So, he gritted his teeth and rushed in, but after seeing the scene inside, he was a little dumbfounded. She saw two naked bodies lying on top of each other on the bed. The pale and panic-stricken, beautiful woman cried out in alarm as she tried to push the person on top of her away. However, because their bodies were still connected, she couldn't push the person away no matter how hard she tried. Instead, the person who rushed and saw everything. When had the guards in the mansion ever seen such an erotic scene? He was dumbfounded. His eyes stared at the beautiful woman's naked body and her snake-like waist. One of them regained his senses and took a step forward. He hesitantly asked the man in the lead, "Captain, this is this third master Maphone." Chapter 38:29. However, just as they walked out, cries of alarm came from other places. There were even people who cried out in alarm as they ran over. "Not good, not good. Guard captain, that." The one who ran over to report was a guard. Because he ran in a hurry and was frightened, he was already panting by the time he arrived in front of everyone. The head guard glanced outside and faintly heard the commotion outside. With a sullen face, he asked, "What's going on?" "Speak slowly." 11th Master and the other 3 elders, they're all dead. The guard's face was pale as he spoke, his heart thumping wildly. This was going to be a big deal. 5 people were killed in one night, and all of them were of the same generation as the patriarch. They all had high statuses in the family, but now they were silently killed. They didn't even know who did it. When did their Sun family become a place where assassins could come and go as they pleased? Hearing the guard's words, the guard captain's face also changed. He immediately asked, "Where is the patriarch? Where are the elders in the family? Quickly go and report." Yes, yes. The guard responded and hurriedly ran off. The guard captain's face was sullen as he strode into the room. The woman had already put on her clothes in a mess and was curled up in a corner. The dead third master on the bed was completely naked, only covered by a blanket. He went forward to check and saw that there were no other fatal wounds on his body. The only fatal wound was that the top of his head was smashed. This result made his heart sink. He immediately turned to look at the woman curled up in a corner and asked in a low voice, "Madame Hong, did you see who killed Third Master?" This woman was Third Master's concubine. It was because of this that they didn't dare to not retreat earlier to avoid being criticized. No. When I woke up, I saw that Third Master was already dead." "Oh." The woman covered her face as she wept. She was both shocked and embarrassed. She was shocked because the man she had made love with had actually died on top of her. When she opened her eyes, she saw his eyes wide open and blood flowing from his mouth, nose, and eyes. She was so frightened that she panicked. She was embarrassed because her naked body had actually been seen by those guards. How could she stand in front of others in the future? Thinking that the man she could rely on was dead and that First Madam might take the opportunity to execute her, she cried even more sadly and fearfully. "Dress the Third Master. Leave 2 people behind to guard. The rest of you come with me." He shouted in a low voice, then turned around and walked out quickly. Something big had happened in the manor. All the elders were woken up from their beds and gathered in the main hall. However, when the elders looked around, they didn't see the patriarch. They were shocked and asked in a trembling voice, "Where's the patriarch? Where's the patriarch?" Well, the patriarch also. Now that such a big incident had happened, all the clan elders were present. Why was the clan head nowhere to be seen? Could something have happened to him as well? Thinking of this possibility, the great elder of the Sun family quickly shouted, "Quick, come with me to take a look." Everyone rushed out in a flurry. Their footsteps were disorderly, and their expressions were anxious as they rushed to the main courtyard. When they arrived at the main courtyard, they saw a guard knocking on the door and shouting. The first elder quickly stepped forward. "What's going on? Where's the patriarch?" Chapter 38:30. The guard lowered his head and didn't dare to speak. He quickly reported outside and then went to report to the others, who knew that the patriarch didn't make a move. Could it be that something happened to him? Thinking of this, the cold sweat on the guard's forehead couldn't help but drip down. Who was so powerful to be able to avoid everyone in the residence and enter the residence to kill so many people? One had to know that those who died weren't ordinary people. They were the central pillars of the Sun residents. Any one of them would be able to shake a region with their strength. But they had been silently killed just like that. How could they not be scared witless? Break open the door. The great elder immediately ordered, and the guard captain strode forward from the back and slammed the door open. After the door was knocked open, the great elder quickly led his men inside. Patriarch! Patriarch! He quickly walked into the inner room. When he saw the motionless figure on the bed, everyone's heart couldn't help but sink. The first elder strode forward and lifted the bed curtain to take a look. When he saw the person on the bed, he heaved a sigh of relief. He turned back and said to everyone, "He's fine, he's fine. He just fainted." When everyone heard this, their anxious hearts were finally at ease. They watched as the first elder took out a medicine and let the patriarch smell it. Not long after, the unconscious person slowly woke up. "Patriarch, you're awake." The first elder sighed and helped him sit up. "What happened? Why did you all?" As Patriarch's son spoke, he rubbed the back of his neck that was hurting. However, halfway through his words, he paused. He was shocked and said, "Someone has snuck in." Sigh. The first elder sighed and said, "Not only did someone sneak in, but he also killed 5 people. Moreover, we don't know who sneaked in and killed them. We don't know why he's going against our Sun family." Just as he finished speaking, the guard captain shouted, "Patriarch, first elder, there are words here." Everyone was stunned and quickly walked to the place that the guard mentioned. Under the light, they saw words written with a sword carved on the bedpost. The great elder stepped forward and read the words. 3 days later, if Sun Werwa is still alive, it will be the time when the Sun family will be wiped out. As soon as this was said, everyone was shocked. Sun Wei? Wasn't this 7th brother of the high firmament celestial sect? Could it be that 5 people died tonight because Sun Wei offended someone, so the other party came to seek revenge? The great elder's heart trembled when he saw those words. They actually made a move against the Sun family because of Sun Wei. 3 days later, if Sun Wei was still alive, would it be the time when the entire Sun family would be wiped out? These words were arrogant and ruthless. If it was any other time, they would at most laugh it off. However, these words were left behind after killing 5 people with extraordinary status and strength in their estate, so they had no choice but to take it to heart. The other party was telling them that it would be easy for them to wipe out the entire Sun clan. When he thought about how even the patriarch was knocked out and left behind these words, he knew this was not a small matter. Moreover, the person who made a move tonight was even more extraordinary. Those who were present were all old foxes who had seen the world. At this time, they also thought of this point. Therefore, their expressions were solemn, and no one took these words as a joke. After a moment of silence, they looked at the patriarch and first elder. Chapter 38-31. Seeing that everyone's eyes were on the 2 of them, Patriarch's son and the great elder looked at each other and asked in a deep voice, "Who are the 5 people who died?" Hearing this, the great elder said, "They are all in the front hall. Let's go. Let's go and discuss it together." Seeing this, Patriarch's son put on his outer robe and followed them out. Before leaving the room, he looked back. The words on the bedpost gave him a great shock. Did the other party leave him to deal with Sun Wei? Otherwise, why did he only knock him out and not kill him? Thinking of this, he walked to the front hall with a heavy heart with a taut face. When he arrived at the front hall and saw the 5 corpses placed side by side in the hall, Patriarch's son's expression changed. On the way here, someone had already told him who the 5 people were. However, when he saw the 5 corpses lying side by side on the ground, his face immediately turned pale. If the other party wanted to kill, there would not be 5 corpses here, but 6. He went forward to check and saw that the 5 people were all killed in one shot. The method was clean and neat. It was almost obvious that the 5 people of the Sun family did not even have the chance to resist before they died. He took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in his heart. He walked to the main seat and sat down. Then he looked at everyone and asked, "Who did Sun Wei offend recently? How did they find the Sun family? I haven't heard of it." As far as I know, he has been in the immortal sect recently and hasn't left the mountain, a middle-aged man said. He also couldn't figure it out. Oomph. Just because he hasn't left the mountain doesn't mean that he hasn't offended anyone. I think he has offended someone and doesn't dare to leave the mountain. An old man snorted with an ugly expression. He flicked his sleeve and said, "He offended someone and implicated his family. He really deserves to die." Among the people who died, one of them was his son. Now that he saw his son die so tragically, how could he not be resentful? An old man stroked his beard and said, "I think the other party is just bluffing. Our Sun family is a century-old family with a strong foundation. How can he destroy our entire family just because he wants to?" The old man glanced at him and said sarcastically, "That's because the one who died wasn't your son. There are so many people in the mansion, but no one knows how the other party managed to sneak in." Even the patriarch was knocked unconscious. Do you still think those people are ordinary people? Was it just a bluff? If it was just a bluff, then 5 people wouldn't have died in one night. Hearing this, the old man who was stroking his beard still wanted to say something, but when he saw everyone's gazes fall on him, he moved his lips but didn't say anything in the end. He only said, "No matter what, Patriarch should make the decision. No matter what the decision is, I have no objections." Sun family head pondered for a moment before saying, "I'll have to ask the ancestor about this." Then he looked at the great elder and asked, "What do you think, great elder?" The grand elder nodded. "Yes, we have to ask the patriarch. Since Sun Wei entered the high heaven celestial sect, he has contributed a lot to our clan. Moreover, he is not weak. Even if we really want to make a move on him, we have to ask the patriarch to make a move." Patriarch Sun nodded, looked at the crowd, and asked, "Do you have any objections?" "We have no objections," everyone replied. Chapter 38-32. This matter was related to their lives. Even without the patriarch's instructions, everyone knew that they should keep their mouths shut. Therefore, they all replied respectfully, "Patriarch, don't worry. We understand." "Great elder, come with me to ask the ancestor," Patriarch Sun said as he looked at the great elder. "Okay." The great elder nodded and followed him out. That night was a sleepless night for the Sun family. Now, that something like this happened in the middle of the night, no one was in the mood to sleep. Instead, they sat down in groups and discussed this matter. Some people went out to make arrangements so that the servants in the mansion could not leak any information. On the other side, Du Fan and the others returned to the small house in the center of the lake. As their masters had already rested, they did not disturb them. Instead, they asked the kitchen to prepare a few dishes and found a place to eat and drink with 2 pots of wine. The next day, in the soaring firmament celestial sect, Peak Master Sun did not know that something had happened in the family. At this moment, he was in the law enforcement hall, talking to a few law enforcement supremacies. Chi Kong has just taken the position of the East City Lord, and he has already done something like this. If we let this go on, I'm afraid that he will really bully our soaring firmament celestial sect in the future. Law enforcement elder, this is not the first time that these people have attacked our celestial sect. Have you forgotten what happened a while ago? They were simply condescending. If we let this go on, how can our soaring firmament celestial sect establish a foothold on this continent in the future? Hearing this, one of the law enforcement elders hesitated and said, "Before the sect leader went into seclusion, he told us not to do anything to those people. Although we did not expect them to be hiding in the flying immortal city, the sect leader has already given the order. It is not good to act behind his back." That's right. We are from the soaring firmament celestial sect. Although we are law enforcement supremacies, without the sect leader's order, it is not appropriate to act abruptly. One of the law enforcement supremacies said in a deep voice. Hearing that they had changed their minds one by one, his face turned ugly. "Are we just going to let them go like this? That was not what you said yesterday. Why did you change your mind today?" The law enforcement supremacies did not speak. They only took a sip of tea. The law enforcement elder did not speak either. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, a white figure walked in from outside. Why is Peak Master Sun so anxious to deal with them? Could it be that they were hindering Peak Master Sun's interests? Or does he have some grudge with Peak Master Sun? Hearing this voice, Peak Master Sun immediately turned around with a cold glint in his eyes. Duan Yunhe. So it's you. He was wondering why the venerables of the enforcement hall had suddenly retreated. So it was because of Duan Yunhe. Greetings, law enforcement elder and venerables. Duan Yunhe cupped his hands and bowed to them. The group nodded and looked at the two before the enforcement elders said, "Let's put this matter aside for now. We'll wait for the sect master to come out before we make a decision. If Peak Master Sun has any objections, you can speak to the elders." A wisp of dim light flashed through Sun Wei's eyes when he heard this. He looked at them and said, "Enforcement elders, could it be that we're just going to allow them to kill our people like this? Wouldn't that disappoint the sect disciples?" "There's no evidence to prove that they did it," Duan Yunhe said. Chapter 38-33. Peak Master, the people from your clan have come, a disciple reported in a low voice. Peak Master Sun was slightly surprised when he heard that, but he did not show it on his face. He only clasped his hands at the person from the disciplinary hall, then glanced at Duan Yunhe before turning to leave. Just as he was about to go to his residence, the disciple who had reported to him said, "Peak Master, the people from your clan haven't come in. They're waiting for you at the sect entrance." Peak Master Sun frowned when he heard that. Only then did he walk towards the sect entrance. In the past, people would always come in. Why weren't they here this time? Why were they waiting at the sect entrance? When he arrived, he was even more surprised when he saw who it was. "Third elder, second uncle, why are you here?" When the two of them saw him, their eyes flashed. The third elder said, "The ancestor wants you to come back with us." "Has something happened in the clan?" he asked sharply. He felt that if it wasn't for the clan, the two of them would not have come to find him personally. Could it be that something very serious had happened? "That's right. Something has happened in the clan, and it's very serious," the third elder said with a serious expression. He looked at him and said, "Even the ancestor has been alerted. That's why he wants you to go back." Hearing that, he nodded and said, "All right, then tell this disciple what to do." With that, he said a few words to a disciple behind him before leaving with them. After the disciple watched him leave, he went back inside to report to the elder. On the other side, Xianyuan Mose was strolling around the residence with Fengjiu. He did not tell Fengjiu about what had happened, and Fengjiu did not ask about it either. The days passed peacefully and comfortably. After walking around, Fengjiu sat down under a tree. He looked at Xianyuan Mose and asked with a smile, "Why have they all come back?" Xianyuan Mose's expression remained the same. He glanced at Bai Qingsheng and Lung Shuang, who were not far away, and said, "We've finished dealing with the matters at hand. There's nothing important, so we've come back." As he spoke, he looked at her and asked, "Didn't you say you wanted to eat lotus leaf chicken before going to bed last night?" "I asked Lung Shuang to tell the kitchen staff to prepare it today. It should be ready now. Why don't we eat here?" "Sure." Fengjiu smiled. Sitting on the stone table under the tree, a cool breeze brushed against one's face. The scenery was pleasant. Eating here would probably improve one's appetite. "Lung Shuang, bring the dishes here," Xianyuan Mose called out to Lung Shuang, who was not far away. "Understood," Lung Shuang replied. Just as he was about to leave, Bai Qingsheng said, "I'll go. You just stay here and keep watch." Hearing this, Lung Shuang nodded and asked her to go to the kitchen to bring the food while he stayed where he was. Not long after, Bai Qingsheng came back with the food, followed by two servant girls who also carried the food. They placed the food on the table and then left. After Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose washed their hands, they opened the lotus leaf chicken. As soon as the lotus leaf was opened, the fragrance of lotus assailed their nostrils. Just as Fengjiu was about to eat, Xianyuan Mose stopped him. Seeing Fengjiu looking at him, Xianyuan Mose's lips curled up slightly. "I'll do it." As he spoke, he used a small knife and chopsticks to cut the chicken into small pieces and place them in her bowl. Fengjiu saw this and smiled. She used her chopsticks to pick up a piece and brought it to his mouth. Eat it while it's hot. Xin Yuan Mose opened his mouth and ate it. Feng Jiu smiled and picked up a piece to eat. Chapter 38-34. The members of the Sun family all had solemn expressions. After the incident last night, no one was allowed to go out because they were worried that someone would accidentally leak the news. Therefore, other than the two people who went to the Lingxiao celestial sect to bring Sun Wei back with the Patriarch's token, no one else stepped out of the Sun family's gate. At this moment, in the ancestral hall of the Sun family, Sun Wei, who was tied up by the immortal binding rope, was forced to kneel on the ground. He struggled with a face full of disbelief. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He thought that something had happened in the family, but who knew that when he returned to the family, he was tied up and his spiritual power was completely lost under the effect of the immortal binding rope. He didn't even know what was going on. Why did the people in the family treat him like this? Standing on both sides of the ancestral hall were the elders of the clan, as well as the pillars of the clan. Seeing them all staring at him with serious expressions, his heart couldn't help but sink. He faintly had a bad premonition. "The Patriarch is here." A loud shout came from outside. Everyone looked outside and saw the Patriarch of the Sun family walking in with a black wooden cane in his hand. Behind him were the Patriarch and the Great Elder. "Patriarch," Sun Wei greets the Patriarch. Seeing the Patriarch of the Sun family, Sun Wei immediately wanted to bow. However, because he was tied up, he couldn't bow with his hands. He could only bow and lower his head. "Patriarch, what crime did I commit? Why am I being treated like this when I return to the family?" Sun Wei suppressed the anger and injustice in his heart and asked. He didn't think that he had done anything to let down the family. In fact, when he heard that something had happened to the family, he rushed back without saying a word. But who knew that what was waiting for him when he returned was actually such a force? The Patriarch of the Sun family walked to the front and stood upright. He held his cane with both hands and looked at Sun Wei, who was kneeling in front of him. He said, "What is the seventh rule of the Sun family? Recite it for me." "The seventh rule of the Sun family?" Sun Wei was stunned and looked at the Patriarch, who had a sullen face. "That's right, the seventh rule." The Patriarch replied and looked at Sun Wei expressionlessly. "The seventh rule of the Sun family. If you make enemies outside, you must not bring disaster to the family." He muttered, but when he said this, he couldn't help but be stunned. His heart suddenly trembled. "Patriarch, what is going on? I was treated like this as soon as I came back. Even if I did something wrong, please let me understand what I did wrong." "Great Elder, why don't you tell him why he is being treated like this and why he is kneeling here?" The Patriarch of the Sun family's Patriarch's voice, but the Patriarch of the Sun family, the Patriarch of the Sun family. "Patriarch," the first elder respectfully replied. He took a step forward and looked at the kneeling Sun Wei. He said, "You've made enemies outside, but you've implicated the family. Last night, 5 people from the Sun family died, and they weren't ordinary members of the Sun family. They were 5 people of the same generation as you." When he heard this, he was dumbfounded for a moment. 5 people died in one night. Killed. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.